What's up, gamers? Welcome to Battle Mallet Podcast, episode 42, Hexed, Nether Maze Rivals Review 4, Gorchosen and the Deadly Depths. For anyone that isn't familiar, the Battle Mallet Podcast is a group of four guys playing games that they love, balancing life with those games, and making their way to the Nova Open Convention every year. I'm never going to get the intro the same every time, and that's fine. It's great. It adds character.
Keeping us on our toes over here. That was way different than any other time.
I know, right? Yeah, I got switch it up every now and again, and then hate it and decide to do it the correct way next time. So, this is I'm Jerod Johnson, and tonight I am joined by Jason Table Noob Murray.
Hello, how are you? I am ready to talk about some Gore Hulk.
Oh man. The Gore Hulkamania. That's what's going on in the Underworld community right now. Right. So as a Hexed episode, this will be focused on Warhammer Underworld. We are going to talk about mine and Jason's experience in the Nova Open Clash. I don't think I can use the word grand. I mean, I had a grand time, but
it was a good time.
It was a good time. And then we'll dig into our rivals perspective review of the Gorchosen, the new and last Nether Maze Warband, and then the Deadly Depths Rivals deck that is also coming out. Actually, I just wanted to let our listeners know that we were able to get Gerard the Professor to sit down with us before this episode was published. So we've included our interview with him. So Nova Grand Clash winner Gerard the Professor Padro has a segment with us towards the end of this episode. So if you're interested in that, you can skip ahead and find it. So before we talk about the Rivals review, I figure we should talk about our escapades leading up to and during the Nova Underworld's Clash. So, yeah. Jason?
Yeah, and I guess, just to tease, you'll get our full Nova recap on another episode. This is going to be strictly the Underworld's part of it. So, there was a lot to unpack at the event. It was great. I just want to take a moment to thank all my opponents. More importantly, because I got to play Underworld's Championship in real person at an event, which for me has not happened in 3 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's been a long time since the previous Nova. So, but yeah, it was awesome. It was a Friday event, 11 players. Murder's Row, a lot of people that we know and play with a lot. So it was great in my experience, Jerod. I didn't play a whole lot of people. I played Amon, was the only person that I know. Everybody else was a new opponent to me, so I loved it even more.
Yeah, no, I was in the same boat. So I know that the results were posted, I think, on various Discords or whatever. There's an asterisk to my 2-2 record for anybody that is, hopeful that there is something to be done with Headcracker. I did get the buy in round 2. So, oh my gosh, eBay is blowing up.
Man, money just falling from the stones.
I know, right? But I did play a game against the TO during my buy, so I actually got to play against 3 novel opponents. Oh my gosh, my phone is going crazy.
Stuff.
Yeah, throwing that on the couch. Anyway, so I guess we'll go back and forth. Well, we kind of got like a popcorn kind of questionnaire here. So Jason, what warband did you end up taking?
I took some dirty orcs as well, but I took Crushes.
The Crushes. And what led to that decision, Jason?
Because the beta rule wasn't in play.
That's right. Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, I emailed just asking more for just knowledge base. Is the beta rule going to be in play for Crushes? And when the answer came back, I was fully expecting yes, it would be. But the answer was no. So when the answer was no, I started looking at just their objectives and then trying to think of the meta. And that's really where I got pushed off, was like trying to figure out what this meta is going to be, because I will tell you the meta at Nova was 110% different than what we deal with on a weekly basis playing a lot of online games.
Yes. Yeah. So what? So can we run down that real quick? I mean, we can run through that, right? So you brought Crushes.
Yes.
There was another Crushes player.
There was another Crushes player.
I brought Headcracker.
Mm-hmm. There was 2 Rippas.
2 Rippas. There was a Gitz.
A Gitz, which I was
Yeah,
ready for Gitz.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think mentally I was, but when the rubber met the road, we'll talk about that later. There was a Magor's Fiends.
Yeah.
A Dread Pageant. That's only.
Skelpros.
Yeah, there was the
Sepulchral Guard.
Malog's Mob.
And Blade. I'm sorry.
The
Shadeborn. Shadeborn, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the only ones sitting in there that are like real online meta players are the Gitz and the Shadeborn.
Yes.
Right? Like there's not a lot of Headcrackers running around anymore. There's not a lot of Morgok because the beta rule is in effect typically. Sepulchral Guard, they're always rising up, but never sitting at the top of anything lately. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting meta and not one that I expected. Gerard's Malog, I think, caught a lot of people off guard.
Yeah, I think so. I think the double Rippa was surprising to me. Like, I mean, Rippa's done well here recently, at least in in-person events. So it wasn't completely surprising to run into another Crushes though. Like when I sat down and there was a mirror, I was like, I am not prepared for this.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, like looking at that spread, other than the Sepulchral Guard and the Gits, there wasn't a lot of like hold objectives.
Right.
And Derek Captain Murder, for those of you that are familiar with who that player is online, he brought the Shadeborn, but he played them even more aggressively than I think I would have played them if I took them. So yeah, defining the meta was strange. And from a Crushes standpoint, I was prepared for Exile Dead. I was prepared for Gits. I was prepared for all of these, like, they don't really want to engage warbands that want to hold objectives or hold gloom. And so I made some, like, card choices. Specifically the one that allows me to attack back when I'm attacked. That was a conscious torch, and I forget the name of it, but, like, a reprisal or something like that.
Yeah, brutal reprisal. Brutal reprisal might be the Rippa's version, but
yeah, same difference, right?
Right.
But I took it out because it's like I have to be adjacent, and I thought we were going to see a lot more range 2 attacks.
Yeah.
So, and even you, like, I mean, for you to say that, like, I also went 2-2, right? So just to get that out of the room, like, out there is we both finished 2-2. But for you, like, you've been doing well in the online meta with that Headcrackers build.
Yeah.
I mean, you made the playoffs. You went to.
I made it past round 1 in the playoffs, which I've never done before. Like I've made the cut several times, but never made it past round 1. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that I was prepared for, I was prepared for Exile Dead. I was prepared for Soul Raid. I was prepared for, vampires, felt fairly confident. I don't think we ever tested your Morgok deck into my Headcracker deck, but I felt like I had some chops there. And I was prepared for a more passive hold objective, like a Gitz or Sepulchral Guard or something, like a larger warband like that is holding tokens or objectives. But I mean, my main thing there was that I really just wanted to give them one more go before Dire Chasm rotated, because once Dire Chasm rotates and all of the primacy stuff is gone, that they're not going to be as effective. I think they'll still be a ton of fun in Rivals and what we're affectionately calling the Rivals Plus format, just because they'll be able to take advantage of primacy innately. But I was doing kind of a flex aggro primacy build. So like I had dominant position in there, and I had like the flip 2 and the flip 3. So sudden revelation and
ever downwards.
Ever downwards. I had horrors in the dark. So, like pushing the midline, I was interested in the feature tokens because I knew that was an option. But yeah, I too was a little surprised, especially when we get into the rounds. Round 1 was a nice slap to the face.
Yeah, and I think that is sort of the same way that I built Crushes, right? So I took Sudden Revelation, Ever Downwards, kind of these hold objectives, really trying to get into the midline and score my surges easily by just holding objective tokens. Because I thought it was going to be, I don't want to say passive, but a lot more mid-board feature token focused. And I would like I played 2 Rippas and a Crusha. It doesn't get much more aggro than those. I did play Dread Pageant, and the deck worked fairly well into Dread Pageant only because I had the other stuff. Because I brought Phantom Darts, I brought Soultooth Bow, and I brought the spear, the chitin spear. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the bow in practice, because it's range 4, worked beautifully. And it in all the practice games, it allowed me to kind of because I had that and Soundless Step, so it allowed me to kind of push around the board and get WA tokens and do what I wanted to do with still attacking. The same thing with Phantom Darts, and it worked in some games. But the fact that I wasn't teched into the aggro side of Crushes, that's when I had the mirror, and we'll get into it, that you could tell he was teched into aggro more, and I felt it. So anyway, you want to go through your first game, because that was probably the most important one.
Yeah. So round 1, I drew Gerard.
Oh, geez.
And his Mollog's Mob deck. So anyone that doesn't know Gerard, the professor, he won the event with Mollog's Mob, and it was brutal. I just was not teched to try to bring down a 7+ wound fighter. It was not something that was on my radar at all, and I was not teched to deal with a fighter that could swing for 3 or 4 damage multiple times. So it was, I had the defensive tech in there. I had, Troggoth's Blood to get my healing on. I had Instinctive Shield so that, I could resist the damage without becoming a large fighter. And I had, push tech to be able to push myself around. But most of that was meant to help me get where I needed to be, for my surges, for everything that I was trying to score there. The other thing that did not do me any favors is that he was also playing Primacy, and he had Feign Strength, which he was able to use to great effect against me in both matches. Both games, and it.
Feign Strength do?
So Feign Strength is a card where you gain the Primacy token, but then you have to discard it at the end of the round. And so he's able to play that in the last power step. So I'm sitting with the Primacy token. I have in phase things that rely on me having the Primacy, and I'm thinking I'm sitting safe. And then he plays Feign Strength, and sure, he gets the Primacy, but he doesn't get the glory for it. But he also denies me a ton of glory in the end. So it was. It was brutal.
Hurts.
Yeah, and I mean, but it was a great game, and Gerard is always a great opponent. He is an appropriate level of apologetic when it comes to the perception of dice tipping in his favor. So I mean, you live by the dice and you die by the dice when you're playing aggro. So I'm not gonna harp on rolls or anything like that. It was a good game, and he just demolished me the first game, and then it was close the second game. I made him work for it, at least in the second game, but it wasn't enough for me to get out on top to push it to game 3. So
yeah, and in the end, that warband took the event, and Mollogs aggro. Yep. It fits well. And the other thing, just to make a comment, because we won't talk about Mollog again, because I did not have the pleasure of playing Mollog. he had heals in there as well. So essentially, he's about 12 wounds worth of
Yeah.
damage.
Yeah, I definitely got like 5 damage on him at one point, and it just slowly started trickling off.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny too how many destruction warbands were there. Because like online, in my perception, a lot of death.
Yep.
Not at Nova.
No.
So it was good.
Yep. All right. So you're round 1.
My round 1, I played Don, who was a great opponent. He had fantastic Converse like yellow shoes. I loved him. But he played Dread Pageant, and I was very familiar with this matchup going into it. I will say that it came down to Thug not beating people up, but Thug had 2 single critical defense rolls in a game.
Nice,
and
Thug.
That first game I only won 16-14. And if Thug falls, that game goes the other way.
Yikes.
But Thug was a champion.
He's always a champion.
Yeah, and then the next game. So what I thought was strange and what kind of threw me off is so I won boards, and obviously I set up aggro, and I set up wide, so I got to lay out the format. I set up wide, and the objectives fell where the objectives fell, and they're all fairly center, except he had one in the back right hand side of his wide board, and then he had one kind of like back center, and he kind of put me in a position where I had to manipulate to come to him. He was using Hadzu like very effectively. He had the where he could attack again upgrade on him. Just kind of like plink me around, but push me around. And the first game, it was more set back. Like he had more, I had to cover more ground to get into like his Gribbly fighters. And then round 2, when he placed boards, he placed longboard. He longboarded me. And as soon as he sat down, I was like, I'm in trouble. Like the board that I had, I could get someone in, but I couldn't get all the way in. But then what happened with the objectives is all the objectives got pushed towards the center.
Yeah.
He didn't put one way, way far back. And even when he deployed, he kind of deployed further up, which meant I had targets. I did play a little passive. This is game 2, a little bit more passive, and I scored dominant position early in the game. But I was also able to get off into the fray. So Morgak was able to go across and get into the fray. And for those that aren't familiar, that's where you're holding an objective in enemy territory, and your leader is also within 2 hexes of a fighter. But the game was like that game. The second game was close in the fact that he had Slake Slash, Glissette, and his leader were all still alive, kind of mid turn 2. And then I was able to like charge in and kill the leader because he was only on a single defense. And then that kind of swung it. And then I used Morgok Crush's push. And I got really deep into his territory and was able to put some distance. So I was forcing him to charge. And then it just kind of folded into my my plan.
Nice.
Then I scored Proud Commander and Unafraid and Bold Deeds, all the things that kind of stacked up. Plus, in that matchup, I was getting primacy. So after game 1, I think I was top table. I don't know if I was top player, but it felt good. It felt real good to get that first game in. Again, he was a great opponent, and Thug. The dice, which have sucked for me over the last 6 months, the dice in this game swung in my favor because of those 2 defensive rolls.
Single die crit defs, man.
Yeah, they definitely held me in there.
Yeah.
So going into round 2, I was feeling pretty good, and then the person that got the bye, John, sat down across me with crushes, and I was like, okay. I was not expecting it at all because obviously he didn't play the first round, and I was so focused. Anyone that has ever played me, I get a little intense during the games in the fact that like I don't notice anything else that's going around me. just like I kind of fade away. And then he sat down and pulled those out. And right away I was like, oh, if he's tech the way I think he is, and he ran a very similar deck to what I was practicing a couple months ago.
Yeah.
When I played Crushes, it was just straight aggro. And it did not go well. Actually, game one went well. Like I was able to get into his backfield. I killed one fighter. I had Morgok left, and I pushed Morgok all the way back into his backfield. He had two people in mine, and he scored. What is the one where you don't have any enemies in enemy territory? Demolish the opposition, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And which was 3, which I knew was coming, and we were tied 13-13. And I thought I had it because I was on the objective in his territory. And like when he kind of looked at his cards again, he's like, "Oh, I also scored Awesome Predator," which is the one like he got 14. He got me 14-13.
Yeah.
So we go into game 2. I'm like, darn it! I thought I had it. I thought I calculated all this math out. I thought I was like a pro player. I wasn't. He got me. And then game 2. This is how we'll just sum up game 2. I set boards. Oh, he also longboarded me game 1. So, but game 2, knowing that he's full aggro, he pulls out plus attack dice. I kind of offset, and I think I've been like kind of smart, and I've sacrificed Thug, and I've put the other 2 where I can kind of countercharge. He attacks 3 times, hits all 3. He takes Thug out, and Morgok's got 3 wounds on him. And then in order to score anything at the end of turn 1, I have to run Morgok through lethal to the other side of the board to get some glory.
Oh, no.
We are going into turn 2 with Morgok at 1 wound, and Art Skull had attacks, so he had 1 wall counter on him, but he wasn't inspired yet. And he was basically sitting clean. I think someone had 2 damage on him. I think his Morgok might have had 2 damage on him, but I was like, oh, the dice have to really come through in turn 2. They didn't. Art Skull Swan missed. Art Skull Swan missed. Art Skull Swan and missed.
That's painful.
And then he just cleaned me up. He killed Morgok right away, and then 2-shotted Art Skull, and I was drawing cards for turn 3.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
But he was teched into it, and he got me. It was a good one. What about your game 2?
Yeah, so game 2 was the bye, and I got to play against the TO Teresa, which, spoilers for the pending episode, was also one of my opponents in the AOS doubles that I played with Trace the Thursday before. So she had Mollog, and she had not played Underworlds in a long time, and so we just kind of went through some of the motions. I helped her remember like how the activations work and all that stuff. So it was kind of like a teaching game more than anything else, but it was still fun to be able to sit down across the table and roll dice against somebody that I had never played Underworlds against before. So
very good.
So that was fun. And then we go into round 3. So now we're both 1-1.
1-1.
And I draw Ruben Sanchez as my round 3 opponent. And this is our Gits player of the weekend. And to his credit, he had like some major crises going on at home and was still able to focus on a game. Like multiple leaks had been found in his house. And he was trying to get in touch with plumbers and his father or father-in-law to try to get stuff taken care of while he's there, also trying to play Warhammer Underworld. So like credit to Ruben for his ability to focus and play the game. So he ended up 2-0ing me. But game 1 was tied at the end of the final end phase, and he was sitting on 1 objective. Game 1 was really like a maybe a misplay at one point / not getting the cards that I needed that lost it, he got a cheeky infestation on me because I had not flipped any objectives in my territory or drawn the cards to flip other objectives. So he scored 5 glory in the first in phase for holding one objective. Yeah, it was painful. But other than that, like everything kind of like went as expected. He was playing a very aggressive, like murder goblin deck. So he was not running the flip objectives. So he did not have sudden revelation or ever downwards.
Wow.
So he was still able to make some things work in his favor. And then to my credit, Snurk never killed anyone, but to his credit, he was able to use Snurk to kind of deny parts of the board, which made it harder for me, obviously, to get the glory that I needed. And then game 2, I think things tipped in his favor just a little bit when it came to like dice rolls. Probably it was either dice rolls or card draw, but I held him to within 3. So like the total glory differential over both rounds was 33 to 30 in his favor. We tied game 1. He was on an objective, but he did not score infestation game 2 though.
way to learn from your mistakes.
That's right. So not fast enough. But in classic Gets fashion, he was running pure carnage, and that's right. Like that's 3 glory that you have to be able to account for that I wasn't able to get over in game 2. But I mean, he was an excellent opponent. Like we had a great time. It like you've said before, like it's just really fun to play against new people and to not bash my head against the same people over and over and over again.
Right.
And I really liked his deck construction. He was using a lot of the different weapon attack action upgrades, and throw in dibs or red cap or stick it. No, stick it's I don't know.
One of them. One of the bow and arrow.
One of the gobos. But yeah, so I mean, I was a little disappointed that I took the L there. I thought that I was ready to go into the goblins, but apparently I was not. And so that put me at 1 and 2 with one of my wins being a bye, but that's okay. How was your round 3?
So, well, first off, that's a greedy Gets deck, right? Like, pure carnage and infestation. I mean, most decks are 17, 18 glory. That's right. 8 glory and 2 cards. That's right. Good on him. So, my third round opponent was the lovable Amon. So I got to sit down with Amon and actually play an in-person game, which this was I think this is the first time I've ever played in person with Amon, and I've played Amon a lot. I'll talk to him for years. But yeah, this is the first time that we've sat down at the table together. He was playing Ripa. And I just didn't have an answer. So, game 1 went about how I thought it was. I did not shy away from Ripa. I had the cards. I had drawn all kind of my attack cards like right away. So I said, this is it. Like I got plus dice, I have pushes, I can inspire, go in and just try to get Ripa. I failed the attack. Like I just missed. Yeah. Right. And that was like round 1, activation 3. We're going blazing. He inspired. He just ate me up. I don't remember the score of game 1. I want to say he beat me by double. I want to say it was like 7-14 or 7-16, something like that. It wasn't good. Game 2, I gave him a little more of a go. I was able, like the way that the boards were laid out, I was able to ignore Ripa. But I still only killed 1 wolf. The entire 2 sets, I only killed 1 wolf.
Yeah.
Again, because he was teched into aggro, he was getting additional attacks and able to push a little bit more. There was one thing that kind of came up, and I don't know why this came up at the event. Like we've been playing Center of Attention for years, and my second round opponent, John, like he played Center of Attention in the way that he read the card, or someone next to us, I can't remember who it was. It was like, choose one fighter, push each other fighter that is within 2 hexes of the chosen fighter up to 1 hex, so they are closer to the chosen fighter in the order you choose, right? And it was the up 2 that I think threw us out. So like Amon and I had like a conversation about center of attention, which we ended up by playing the way that we've always played it, because that's what I don't know why I got confused in that my previous game. So is that, and then there was an amazing like brutal reprisal, berserk fortitude, um, like exchange. It was like 4 reactions in a row that was just like, holy cow, can we do this? So then we had this whole like, all right, I'm attacking you, I hit you, then you bite back at me or swing back at me, and it's like, and then I'm gonna berserk fortitude that, and like, so we had this awesome like, you know me, when it comes to rules and rules interactions,
Yep.
I was just like eating it up. And Amon's like, I think we're doing it right. And I go, I don't care if we're doing it right or not. This is awesome. Like, I want to read all this stuff. And that's kind of how game 2 went. He did like, when you're rolling 3 dice and 2 dice on defense, it's just better odds than what I
Yep.
had. So I did kill 1 wolf that time, but that wasn't enough. And he took that one as well. But it was a super fun game. Um, it set me up for my fourth game.
Oh, nice.
Because I lost to Amon.
Yep.
He O2'd me. That sneaky little jerk that he is got 2 games away from me, and I couldn't even squeak one out. But now I'm 1-2 going into my 4th game, and Glenn sits down, and now I'm playing Ripa again. And you want to know what the worst part is? Is like, so all right, so Ripa, we kind of lay out the boards. I have my game plan from last game. I scored 2 glory in my first game against Glenn. He murdered me.
Nice.
So I didn't go for my surge objectives. I was like, forget it. Like, we have to get on top of them. We have to take out a wolf in turn 1 or turn 2. And it got to such a point where I was getting destroyed so much, I just drew cards. I was like, I'm drawing a power card, and I'm drawing a power card, and I'm drawing a power
Wow.
card. Because it was like he was so far up, and he played it so well, and positioned his fighters really well. Like, he scored into the fray and just kind of out positioned me because I wasn't worried about the objectives, that it got to the point about mid turn 2 that even if I wanted to go get sudden revelation, like, I would have had to be so far out of position that it didn't make sense, right? So I just kind of chalked it up. Glenn crushed me. It was bad. I'm pretty sure I scored 2 glory. But then in game 2, I came back. So now I kind of knew what his deck could do, knew what I wanted to do. In turn 1, I just played objectives, and my cards helped me too.
Yeah.
So like I got Ever Downwards, I got Sudden Revelation early. They weren't in my opening hand, but I think I had Ever Downwards, and then drew into Sudden Revelation, and then drew into Got It Boss. Like, so they just kind of like snowballed early.
Yep.
And I had Ard Skull off to the left flank, and I was able to get Phantom Darts or Bow, one or the other onto him. So I was able to still score those surges while plinking away to get the counter, so then I could come in late game and do some work.
Yep.
Yeah, and it kind of like, I was able to also get Inert to Pain and Instinctive Shield onto Morgok. So I was like, it just all fell together, right?
Sure.
And then he
Yeah.
was also playing Unafraid and Into the Fray. So I kind of scored what he was scoring. I was able to take out 2 wolves and then kind of lead into there. So I won game 2. And then game 3, was feeling confident again, had this plan, but he deployed back. So we were a little bit offset. Like, his board was a little bit right, my board was a little bit left, but it was like 5 hexes were connecting or something like that.
Yeah.
And I had Ever Downward again, which is a great first draw.
Yes.
And I had enough tech to get to an objective in his area that put it a lethal hex behind if he was going to come counterattack me. and then I spread wide. So Morgok was on the right, Thug was right up the center, and Ardskull was off to the left. So he would have to commit one way or another. And we did the little posturing, draw cards, draw cards, draw cards, and then all of a sudden, and I asked him after the game why he did this, but he beast trailed Ripa from his back line into my back line, like the back of my board.
Oh.
And as soon as he did that, I was gone. I was like, all right, go. Like, we are going into your territory.
Yeah.
You now have to come get me. And I was able to just kind of, beat up the other two wolves uninspired, score the objectives. And I want to say it was Unafraid and something else. Like, I actually sacrificed 3 objectives, and I ended up by Morgok pushing all the way to the back corner, so the back right of his board, all 3 of my guys.
Oh, wow.
I must have pushed 2 or 3 times in the end of the game. So all 3 of my fighters were in a group all the way in the back of his board, and now Ripa can still move for days. So he finally does catch up to me. But at that point, he wasn't going to kill me because I had Inert to Pain and Berserk Fortitude and all this stuff. And that was really what, like, that one move. And he said that he was trying to so the reason he did that was to split my forces,
right,
to make me choose to go back. But really that one play was what allowed me to get into his territory uncontested, because now all I had to do was focus on them, stay in his territory, and it was going to deny him stuff because I wasn't going to be close to him for, like, into the fray and other stuff that he had to score for being in my territory. So,
yeah.
So it's won heavily. I think we were the last game to finish on the day because we had to go to 3. But it was fun. I really enjoyed it. He was an awesome opponent. And thanks to Amon for schooling me up in round 3 so I could come back and finish 2-2 on the day. A true 2-2.
There you go.
None of that buy stuff.
None of that buy stuff. Get out of here with that. Yeah. So so after the gets, I am also 1-2. So I go into round 4, and I also got to play Don with his Dread pageant. And that was fun. I think that I think I was teched a little bit more aggro than he was teched to defend against. And it just meant that I was able to go in and do some work, picking off Hadzu when I can. In game 1, I took down Vasilak with a cheeky Wallop play where Wallop gets a Savage Strength or Great Strength on him, and now he's doing 4 damage. And so it just went well, but he was able to get the upgrade. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I'll find it here in a second. Sickening Resilience onto the Goat Boy, and he rolled 3 shields.
Oh, nice.
In game 1. So 3 times between Headcracker and Wallop and Tooth Dagger, like they're coming in to do 3-4 damage, and he gets the shield, so he only takes 1. And then, I mean, you want to talk about heal tech? Yeah. Dread Pageant has some heal tech, and he's got a fairly accurate attack at some point, so he does 2 damage. He's not killing anybody, but he heals 1. Great. So needless to say, Slake Slash did not go down in game 1, but I was still able to score kind of my passive stuff. That is there to do that, right? It's easy to score. It fuels my glory. It lets me get my upgrades on in game 1, and then in game 2, I had tabled him by the end of activation phase 2. So the Sickening Resilience did not pay off. Slake Slash went down early, and then he had Sickening Resilience on Vasilak, but it was not enough that time. So he took the official pass action for his last 4 activations. So I was able to get out in front. But it was again, like, great opponent, like tons of fun to play against, and we ended up running into them several other times throughout the weekend. We got, I think, lunch with them on Saturday, and we saw them at laser tag Friday night.
Yeah, they played laser tag on Friday,
so it was good.
Yeah.
Good time. So finished out with an asterisk 2-2. I mean, I'm never going to say that I'm the best Warhammer Underworlds player that you'll ever meet, but I'm fairly confident in my deck, and I feel like I probably could have pulled off a legit 2-2, but I don't know. We'll never know.
Yeah, in hindsight for me, I just think I overanalyzed the meta.
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted to play, so I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast or not, but I worked hunger build vampires for 2 months?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I didn't take them is because I didn't think it could play into the meta that we were going to see. And now, in hindsight, looking at the meta we saw,
I think that deck would have done pretty well, Jason.
Yeah, it would have done well. So it would have, because like Moloch could have come in and bought me and I would have healed up, right? Like
Right, yep. Yep.
And it scored a lot of passive glory with wanting to be aggro. So like it wanted to be in the fight, but at the same time could do it. But anyway, like hindsight's 2020. It was simply awesome to play games in person. Don and oh my lord, the Gorse Fiend.
Matt.
Yeah, they played the next day with Ruben and John. Kind of sad I didn't go there, but we were doing other things, which we'll talk about in another episode. Because I would have loved to get more Underworlds games in. But what really capped my event, and it means a lot. Like I was definitely kind of choked up to have this happen, but I got best opponent at the tournament, and it meant a lot. So any of you out there that are listening that I got to play, thank you very much. Given what we've gone through with COVID and then building the community back up here, and the reason why Jerod and I record is to try to grow this game. Like at the foundation of why I'm so invested in Underworlds is just to make it bigger. So to know that I brought Crushes, which could be a dirty warband at times, and still gave all four of my opponents a good event. I'm very appreciative, and it meant a lot. So thank you all.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
But you played one more game.
I did play one more game. So so I had the Vassal playoff after that against the ever-present Jimmy, running his Sepulchral Guard deck. And we don't have to go into a ton of details. I did fairly well game one. Was able to get a cheeky Warden kill early, and it was enough for me to kind of shut him down, to prevent him from scoring things. And from there, it was just mopping up petitioners so that he couldn't hold objectives. Game two, I was eventually able to take down the Warden, but it wasn't fast enough to stop him from scoring like his big in-phase stuff. Like he still got off supremacy and dominant position and things like that throughout that game. So he took game two, and then game three he longboarded me, and that was all she wrote. So we don't need to go into the harvester doing 4 damage on 4 dice.
In that matchup, the longboard, you're basically just taking whatever target you can get.
Yep.
And we know, like Sepulchral Guard, like you don't want to attack the harvester and the champion if you don't.
Oh no! This was the uninspired harvester who.
Just came in and just boom.
Yeah, 4 dice, 4 damage, just murdered me. Yeah. It was pretty brutal, but I mean, it was fun, and it's always fun to play against Jimmy. My head always hurts afterwards because he's such a great player.
Yeah.
Making me think. So I did get one. I got to play 4 legit championship games plus a 5th kind of teaching intro game. So it was good.
Fun day. It was a real fun day. So.
It was. So so I guess with that we will take a break, and when we come back we will talk about the Gorchosen.
Sounds good. And we're back. And I am ready to talk about the eighth wonder of the world, Dromm and the Gorechosen. I'm excited for this warband, as I am everything, but, I thought Hexbane sculpts were the bee's knees.
The cat's meow.
The cat's meow. But when we were sitting at the Nova preview,
Oh my gosh.
Can we even talk about that too? Like, we just saw the preview of these models.
Yes.
And now they're releasing on Saturday. Like, this is crazy. But
Quickest turnaround ever.
These models are just amazing. And I am not a chaos person, and I am not a corn person, but Dromm looks phenomenal.
They all look great.
And then I get to play the Hulk as a corn fighter.
That's right.
It's just, I could take or leave, the
skull grinder.
But
dude, he's like the epitome of the dad bod, though.
Okay, all right. Well, if I was an Underworld's figure, there I am.
There we go.
But the Gore Hulk and Dromm, like, I just love Dromm. Like, the headdress, the axe,
staff.
Yeah, just so cool.
Yeah, he's pretty stinking amazing. Yep.
Because he is a priest.
He is a priest. Yep.
So this is a 3-fighter warband. We'll just kind of jump right in here. 3-fighter warband. The all-in spider when they have 3 or more tithe counters on their fighter card. So each one is independently. You get 3 tithe counters. They start with 1. They get 2 more. They inspire.
Yep.
Okay.
And then not to be confused, right? Like Canaan's Reapers has bone tithe counters. These are blood tithe counters.
Okay. So they're red instead of white.
Correct.
Okay. So as long as they're red, we're good.
We're good.
All right. Dromm's leader. He is got the corn keyword, and he has the priest keyword, which this is the first time the priest keyword has been printed on a card. Now, that little lizard's already been given the priest keyword.
So good old Kishitaka.
Yeah, this is our second priest, but the first time it's been printed. Uninspired, he's moved 3, 1 block, 5 health. So there you go.
So good.
Morgok. And then he's got the God-blessed axe and staff. He's hitting you both at the same time. Range 2, 2 hammers for 2 damage. And then he has a special action called Enrage. And this is where this warband can take life. This is a really cool action. So here it is. Action: remove X blood tithe counters from this card. X is the round number that you're currently in. So round 1, it would be 1, 2, it would be 2, 3 would be 3. Choose a visible fighter with no move and or charge tokens within 4 hexes of Dromm. The chosen fighter's player makes a charge action with that fighter. Wow. Then stagger that fighter plus 1 dice to a friendly fighter's range 1 attack actions during that charge action. So if you're making your own team charge, you're getting plus 1 dice. But if you're making the enemy charge, wait, just stop there. Jared, I'm making the enemy charge?
I know.
What the heck?
That is so cool. There has never been anything as disruptive as this action in Warhammer Underworlds. Like Earthquake, no time trap. What was the one where you got to move as a reaction to a move?
Oh yeah, oh my goodness, you put me on the spot and I can't remember.
I can't remember it either.
Otherwise, you're just running away.
Yeah, but like the fact that you can control the action that an enemy fighter takes, and it's a charge, so they have a charge token, which means they can't do anything else, and they're staggered.
Yeah, and they're staggered. I mean, I think that's just kind of a subtlety that's really nice. Yeah. but you're locking the fighter down. Now, granted, there's a reward for your enemy, like they're charging you.
Yeah.
But you can trigger this when you want, and you're triggering it probably when they're not beefed up, right? They're not playing cards going into your turn for plus dice.
Yep.
Like they're not playing plus damage. So
they're probably not even putting on upgrades yet.
Probably not. So it's so cool. I am curious, like though, because like it does count like cost tithe counters or tokens. So we'll see how much it actually impacts the game. But I definitely know at least once I'm making you do something that you probably don't want to do.
I mean, kind of the way I foresee it is that Dromm may never inspire.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to be okay.
Probably not, because you're sacrificing. Like, so we'll get to. So let me just read how you get blood tithe counters, which is all the way down on Soul Grinder's card or Skull Grinder's card, but just because I think it's relevant. So the blood tithe, you get this token after setup. Give this fighter one blood tithe counter after an activation step in which this fighter dealt damage or was dealt damage other than biolethal. Give the fighter one blood tithe counter. So if he's invoking this in rage where someone's charging and they are successful, you're going to get a tithe counter back.
Yep.
Almost like a refund. But it's still really, really cool. And when if you do get him inspired with the 3 tithe counters, he goes to move 4, and then his axe and staff go to 3 fury, still 2 damage, but he gains grievous. So a range 2 attack on 3 dice, with damage 2 or maybe damage 3 on grievous, that's a pretty sound attack because of the range.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. The next fighter is the Gore Hulk.
Yeah. So I just want to interject really quick.
Go ahead.
Because I don't know how much this is known. Because they said it in the preview, and then because we were at the preview, I actually haven't read the related preview articles. But so this is a Khorne character who is on his way to becoming a Khorgorath, which is like not a demon prince, but like this demon human hybrid monstrosity. So and you can see that like in the sculpt, like the way that he is like starting to look like this monster, but he's still somewhat humanoid. Yeah, human-ish. Anyway, so the Gore Hulk
looks like he's had a lot of protein shakes.
Yeah.
So he's, again, Khorne fighter. He is a brawler, which for championship unlocks a lot of cards, so that's kind of cool. Again, move 3, 1 shield, 5 health, so another 5 health large fighter. He has a crushing grip, so this is 2 fury. Oh, 2 fury, ouch, right? But 3 damage.
Yeah.
And then he has a choking grip, which is range 1, 2 hammers for 1 damage, but it gives stagger if it's successful, and it also has a throttle. I'm going to throttle you. After the deal damage step, give the target 1 move token, and they cannot be driven back by this attack action. Then you can remove one of the fighter's blood tithe counters if you do deal 1 damage to the target. So there's a way to make it to go to 2, right? 2 damage.
Yep.
But I think the cool thing there is like give them a move token. So again, they're gonna lock someone down, kind of where they want, so we can just sit here and beat up on you and try to get our tithe counters.
Yep.
When you gain 3 tithe blood counters, he inspires and he goes to move 4, 6 wounds. So he gains a move and a wound.
Oof.
But wait, that's not all. His crushing grip goes to 3 fury for 3 damage. Now we're talking. And choking grip goes 3 smash, still 1 damage. But now it also gains, it still has the throttle, it still has the stagger, but it now gains ensnare. So
that's rough.
That is rough for those dodge warbands, especially if he can now, because he's going to have 3 counters on him because he's inspired. So now those, little Gribbly, Sepulchral Guard or Grimwatch or anyone that has two wounds with the dodge, you're gonna get eaten by the Gore Hulk.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to go that far, right? So to dip into championship, Glory Seeker, Great Strength, Savage Strength.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, now you've got the opportunity to do a 4 damage attack and then pip for 1 more.
Yep. With ensnare.
With ensnare.
I like it. I like him, and I like that he goes to 6 wounds.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And then the Skull Grinder, he is kind of like, he's just kind of the basic fighter for this warband. He starts off at move 4, which is really good.
Yeah.
Is it 4 wound? He only has 4 wounds, still on a single shield. His Forged Wrath weapons is range 1, 2 hammers for 2 damage. It has blood chains, which we'll get to. That's its special ability. And then it also gives stagger. So like we're handing stagger out quite often with this warband, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we can suck them in and make them charge. So
that's right.
So blood change is remove 1 blood type counter from this card, range 2 until resolved. So you can give him a range 2 attack if you get rid of a blood type counter. Right. I don't know how often you really want to do that, but it's there if you need it. There is a little bit of a wording conundrum on this though, because it just says blood chains. Remove 1 blood type counter from this card, range 2 until resolved. I would like to think that it is optional, but I understand why people would think you always have to do it.
Yeah.
And then when he inspires, really the only thing that changes is he goes to 3 damage.
Yeah.
Still has stagger. Still has the ability to go range 2. So when he gets inspired, here you go. I'm gonna whack-a-mole somebody for 3 damage.
Yeah.
So really, we have the ability in this warband to go to 4 damage, 3 damage, and Grievous 3. Like there's a lot of damage in this warband.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good.
It is. Plus, I'm going to disrupt you and make you charge.
Yeah. Plus all the other fun things that we're going to talk about.
Some cool things, great models. So what are we going to talk about? There's the fighters. Pretty straightforward 3-fighter warband that want to just get in a good old scrum.
Yep.
What objectives are you looking in your opening hand?
Yeah, so just to remind everyone, this is kind of our Rivals format review. We're going to pick out objectives, gambits, and upgrades. These are the cards that you want to favor in your opening hand. You know, if you can get all of them, that's great. But like, especially when it comes to the surges, you know, you're going to want at least, you know, one of the surges that we mentioned, if we mention more than one. One caveat, and this may play in later, is that there are only 4 surge objectives in this warband stack. So that just means it's not going to play as smoothly as a deck that has 6 surges or more. But anyway, so the first surge that we think that you want is a Brutal Reckoning. So this is a surge duel. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action. If that friendly fighter had 1 or more blood type counters and or 1 or more wound counters. And you're going to see this as a trend, the blood type counters and or 1 or more wound counters. That's going to be a trend through their objectives. You start with a blood type counter, and you have reasonably accurate attacks for reasonable amounts of damage. So, you know, it may not be the first attack to hit that takes a fighter out of action, but it could be if you're fighting a horde and you've got some 2 wound fighters within reach, then you know, like this could be a pretty easy score.
Yeah, even if it's not a horde, right? Like the fact that you can get somebody sucked in and stuck in,
yeah,
you can maximize those attacks.
That's true. If your first action is to have Dromm force somebody to charge,
yep,
then you've just got somebody that you can wail on.
Just wail away at them. Swing away, Merrill.
All right.
The next objective is also a surge duel, Untouchable Fury. So this is Surge Duel. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter is dealt damage by an enemy fighter's attack action. If that friendly fighter is not taken out of action by the damage. Rivals deck, 2 5-wound starting fighters and a 4.
Yeah.
I like my odds.
Yeah, especially early, right? And that's what we talk about. This is a card that you want early.
Yep.
So.
And the fact that it might be able to make someone charge that's doing like 1 or 2 damage.
Yeah, that's right. And if they damage you, you get a blood tithe counter.
That's right.
So
it's like win-win-win.
Stars are aligning. Yeah, because Corn Care's not. Let the blood flow.
There we go.
Yeah. So the one end phase that we want to talk about is a worthy offering, and this is score this in an end phase if your warband has 2 or more blood tithe counters. Well, you start with 1, you force somebody to charge, maybe they damaged you, boom, 2.
Well, you start with 3.
Well, you start with 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So all you need is those 3 and it scores.
Yep, you're done.
Just
so, but you're discarding Dromms to have somebody charge. So,
yes.
Yep. But maybe he gets it back because he gets attacked. Who knows?
Maybe. But I think that one's pretty easy turn 1 to just score in the end phase. And
I like it.
We have 3 glory. We're set up for all the upgrades.
Yep.
Let's go murder stuff.
Well, if you've scored a brutal reckoning, you have 4 glory because you've killed somebody.
Oh, good point. Good point.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and then there are 2 other objectives that we want to talk about here, just because they're cool and they are playable.
You skipped my pun.
What's your pun?
These are the corner case.
Cards. Oh. Maybe I did it on purpose. You'll never know. So worshipped in battle. This is a 2 glory end phase objective. 2 or more surviving friendly fighters each have 1 or more blood tithe counter. So 2 or more surviving fighters each have 1 or more blood tithe counter. Check. And those fighters are within 1 hex of no one's territory. For 2 glory. So again, if you get this early, you'll have at least 3 fighters that have a tithe counter. You just move into 1 hex of no man's territory. You let them stay there. You're scoring 2 glory. It's pretty easy, although it may not fit into your opening plan because you might want to be more aggressive. But I like it.
Yep.
And what's your other corner case?
Thanks. So this is Glorious Battle. Score this in an end phase if 4 or more fighters each have 1 or more charge tokens and or 1 or more blood tithe counters. So either you're charging your opponent, you're forcing your opponent to charge, or you have blood tithe counters. You just need some of 4 fighters having charge or blood tithe counters. And then I feel like there was another one in there too that we wanted to mention.
Yeah, there was the one where you had like 8 tithe counters and.
Well, yeah, it was the Blood Gods do. No, there is the one. Yeah, we should mention. All right, yeah, but the Blood Gods do is the other one. Score this in an end phase if 3 or more fighters each have 1 or more wound counters and or 1 or more blood tithe counters. So,
the glorious battle in that one are this and or, so you can like combine the tokens,
right,
which make them much easier to score.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, where's the one that we want? Where's the one that's 8? Is that Grim Satisfaction? Yeah, Grim Satisfaction. Anyway, look it up. Look it up. We won't read it. It's fun. Look it up.
It's fun.
Moving on.
So again, Glorious Battle is a corner case one.
Yeah.
That could score for 2 glory. So that's a good start. I mean, if we have those combinations, we could have 4 glory, we could have 5 glory. It's some good stuff. So moving on to the gambits. What is your favorite gambit, Jerod?
My favorite?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's got to be the push card, right?
Wait, there's a push card in this one?
I know, right? So this is Call of Blood. It is restricted to Dromm, so Dromm has to be alive to be able to play it. It has the prayer keyword, which may come up later. I don't think that there are any objectives for playing prayer cards in the deck.
Not that I'm aware of.
So it's choose up to 2 fighters. Not enemy, not friendly. Any 2 fighters.
Any 2 fighters.
Push each chosen fighter 1 hex towards the nearest fighter from an enemy warband. So if I pick my fighter, I'm pushing it closer to yours. If I pick your fighter, I'm pushing it closer to mine. If a chosen fighter has 1 or more blood tithe counters, you can remove one of that fighter's blood tithe counters. If you do, push the chosen fighter up to 2 hexes towards the nearest fighter from an enemy warband instead. What if you're playing the mirror, Jason?
Oh man, it's
you
like
can force your opponent
4.
You could force your opponent to remove their blood tithe counters, push them closer, and then force them to charge. But it's a push. So you could push two enemy fighters closer to your own fighters, or push 2 of your fighters closer to an enemy fighter. So you could line up attacks without having to swing. You could pull people off of feature tokens or cover hexes or objectives.
Yeah, it's a great card to close the gap too, right?
Yeah.
Because you could pick an enemy fighter and your closest friendly fighter, and it's really like a move too, right? Because they're coming 1 closer, you're going 1 closer.
Yep.
You can discard another one and go another one closer, which is like a total of 3 hexes towards the same fighter.
Yep.
Really good utility card. And the fact that, I know we're gonna have to stop saying this, that distraction is not a card anymore.
Yeah.
This is huge, like up to 2 fighters.
Yeah, the ability to play 1 card and push 2 enemy fighters with that card.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's a very big deal.
Big destruction.
All right.
Cool. The next card that I'm gonna pick, because now it's my go.
It is your turn.
Is Blood Curdling Roar. Not only does it have an awesome 80s metal band cover artwork with this bloody axe, raised fist, love it. It's a reaction. Use this before you would remove 1 or more blood tithe counters from a friendly fighter with 0 or more blood tithe counters. The 0 is kind of key in that statement.
Correct.
When you do, you are considered to remove 1 additional blood tithe counter. So if I pick this fighter and I would remove, but they have 0, I'm really removing 1.
Yep.
Which really plays into a lot of the effects, not only on fighter effects, but there's a lot of other gambits and or upgrades that have effects if I discard a blood tithe. So it gives me a little bit more punch, and it still allows me to work towards my inspire.
Yep.
You definitely want this card turn 1.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I like it. So there are 3 domain cards in this deck. We have picked the Domain of Wrath. This is both the domain and prayer keywords. Again, it's restricted to Dromm. When activated, fighters must make a charge action if they can. This effect persists until the end of the next activation or until another domain gambit is played. However, when this card is played, you can remove 1 blood tithe counter from a friendly Dromm. If you do, this effect persists until the end of the round or until another domain gambit is played. So you could force your opponent to either charge, draw a power card, or rotate an objective card for an entire round.
Yes, because again, they have to be activated, right? So if there is someone on the back of the board that they can activate and move because they couldn't make a valid charge action, they could get around it.
Yeah.
But it really locks down the fighters up front, close and personal. And It's got cool things that against ranged fighters, right? In the pre-show, we were talking about
Dantalos. Yeah.
Right? The fact that he is range 3.
Yep.
He might have to be charging instead of dancing.
Yep.
So that's really cool. And then the last, again, just to keep riding a good pun, the corner case, or card that we need to talk about because it is really cool and it may not be effective in your first hand, but definitely will come into play because it is the Gore Hulk. It is Overhead Smash. Play this only in a power step following your activation, and you cannot play it in your last power step of the round. So you basically have 3 opportunities to play this card. Choose a fighter adjacent to friendly Gore Hulk at the start of your next activation. So if I played this after activation 3 in my 4th activation, I'm going to deal 2 damage to the chosen fighter if they are adjacent to the friendly Gorehulk. When this card deals damage, you can remove 1 blood type counter from a friendly Gorehulk. If you do, this card deals 3 damage to the chosen fighter instead. Rivals, we don't have a ton of pushes, so it's kind of hard once they're next to me to get away from me.
Yep.
I have a couple pushes that could bring you back closer to me, and I have the ability to do 3 damage without rolling a single die.
Yeah, and I have no opportunity to block it.
That is sweet.
And yes. Gorehulk smash.
Gorehulk smash. With purple lightning in the background.
Yes. Okay, yes. Just these are some of these are the 80s-ist.
So good.
Art, man. It's so good. All right. So on to upgrades. Upgrades that you want to see in your opening hand. So I think the first one is Aura of Wrath. Fighters within 2 hexes of this fighter cannot be driven back. So, because like if you force the charge, they could drive you back. You're no longer adjacent. Well, with this in hand, that's no longer the case. And it's going to mean that, if you charge in or you move in, say adjacent to a fighter, and you get attacked, they can't drive you back. So you're still going to be adjacent to, the fighter that you moved adjacent to. So it helps. Could help with the old overhead smash. So
it could, and I'm pretty sure, I can't remember, but I do think they have an in-faction holding an objective close to no man's territory.
I think they do. Yep.
So that could help with that as well. And plus, when you get into the championship, you might be playing some cards that you want to stay on feature tokens, and this can also help with that as well. So I really like that card. That was your pick. I think that is fantastic to make sure that I am standing where I want to stand to hit back at you.
Yep.
I think the most powerful upgrade that they do have is the Bloody Worshipper, and this is an upgrade that can go on any one of your fighters, and at the start of each round, give this fighter 1 Blood Tithe counter. So we're just gaining a counter. I think we all want to get it onto Dromm, at least I do, because I'm going to be burning tithe counters a lot with him. But it can be effective on any fighter to help him get inspired. And it is, you want it turn 1 so you can get 2 free tithe counters through the rest of the game.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely one that you want to, if you don't have it turn 1, you may want to ditch and redraw. So, because nothing would be worse than drawing it going into the third action phase where it is now dead. All right, so the last one that that you probably want to see early is Paragon of Slaughter. So in the declare action step of this fighter's range 1 or range 2 attack actions, you can remove one of this fighter's blood tithe counters. If you do, when that attack action succeeds, pick 1, heal 1 this fighter, or draw 1 power card. So card cycling is nice. Healing is also nice, especially when you only have 3 fighters, even though they have 4, 5, and 5/6 wounds.
Yes.
It's always going to be useful. And it's going to be even more useful in Rivals where you're getting hit for 1 or 2 damage at a time.
Yeah, it is. There is a lot of risk there, right? Because you're discarding it before you know that you're going to get 1 back, or if this is even going to trigger. Right. It has to succeed.
Yeah.
But the heal is going to be really, really powerful. It's good stuff.
Yep.
The last one. So my favorite upgrade.
So cool.
Was Woodcutter Strength, right?
Yep.
Like that was my favorite.
That was a good one.
Has now trumped that. Called Final Frenzy. This fighter cannot be taken out of action. Period. That's like first sentence.
Yeah.
This fighter cannot be taken out of action. This effect does not prevent damage from being dealt to the fighter. So they're still taking damage. So they're still getting tithe tokens, but they're not being taken out of action. At the end of the action phase, break this card. When this card is broken, this fighter is taken out of action. So it's basically like you can live to the end of the round, and then you're gonna die.
Yep. I like the idea that like people could just pump damage onto you Like you could have like 10 wound counters on your fighter card before the round ends. I mean, nobody's gonna do that, but
yeah, you're probably just ignored at this point, right? Because you're gonna die at the end of the round anyway.
yep,
But the really cool thing is you got one wound left.
yeah.
Like you played it in the end phase, right? So I just love it. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna live all of next turn. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah,
I'm coming at you.
that's true because it's at the end of the action phase. So if you play it during the end phase,
Good
you're
stuff.
literally
Really like it.
invulnerable. Yep.
So what is the play style of this warband, Jared?
Yeah, so they're pretty aggressive. But they also have some stuff where they want to be near no one's territory. So I think they have a couple of objectives around being within 1 hex of no one's territory. So, but that plays well because they can take a hit. They have options for drawing you in. So it's kind of this like baited aggro where you maybe don't want to be rushing in full bore first thing. But yeah, I mean, discard 1 blood type counter, make somebody charge you. It just costs a whole action, right? Like there's a trade-off there because you're not getting to do your stuff, but you're like it is likely disruptive enough to be worth it.
Yeah, the key is you're not getting to do your stuff. You're basically giving your opponent another action.
Yep. But that action is a charge, which means that fighter can't do anything else.
That's right. So is it better than drawing a power card?
Probably.
Because in a three fighter warband, that's probably your first action, right?
Yep, that's true. Should be.
Or do I cast it on my own fighter and get a plus dice? Like, it's a really good action. So.
Yeah.
All right, so for boards, because we are this disruptive aggro, baited aggro, I like that term. Like baited aggro is a great way of describing it. We want to play mid board, so we want to play wide, and we want to start as close as possible to the center. I love Chamber of Genesis.
Yeah.
And like the first choice may be to put it with the two starting hexes on the line. And then there's one that's kind of set back. But I actually like the other configuration where it's almost like this diamond pattern, and there's
one up front, two set back.
Two set back. Because the range 2 fighters, I just think that it's a little more versatile there.
Yeah.
You can kind of like dictate, and they're not together, right? So like if I do make someone charge,
they don't necessarily get their choice of target.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's boards.
Yeah. What are you gonna try to do if you're sitting across from them? What are we gonna do? I guess you just answered the boards question, so I'll just ask myself that question.
There you go.
Nice.
What do you want to do?
Yeah, so I think you have to play away, right? So like, make sure that your key fighters aren't in charge range, so they can't be forced to charge. You can use move actions to avoid the enrage action or charge yourself, because they can't choose fighters that have move or charge tokens. And then the only other thing I'd say is that just pick one fighter and try to take that fighter down. Don't be passing blood type counters around across the whole warband by doing like 1 damage here, 2 damage there across the warband. I mean, that's pretty much the advice for fighting against an elite warband anyway, but yeah. I think it's even more true for this one.
I think specifically rivals, like if you take down Dromm,
yes,
like their deck crumbles because there's a lot of Dromm cards in there.
Yeah. So many of the gambits are Dromm specific.
But your opponent's going to play to that, right? So it's going to be hard to get them down. But
yeah.
So then new player rating, what do we give them for new players?
So I know in the pre-show we said silver.
Yeah.
I think that they might be a silver minus.
Silver minus.
Yeah. So the silver, so they get the silver. The play style is straightforward. And they're tough fighters. So they're not going to be super easy to kill in rivals, which means that they'll stick around. You'll get to play the game. but they only have 4 surges.
Okay, you're gonna give me silver because of the surges.
No, they're still silver. Like I don't think that they dip down into bronze.
Okay.
I think they're a weak silver.
Yeah, I don't think that, for me, I'm fine with the weak silver. I'm fine with an alloyed silver, okay?
Yeah.
Or tarnished. This is a
Yeah.
tarnished silver.
Yeah.
But for me, it's more the nuances of maximizing attacks. But I also think that this warband teaches the basics of that, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do I leverage positioning to get multiple attacks with my fighters, take multiple attacks with my fighters, to get the tie counters, and I really like it. I think it'll be a solid warband for someone to start with. It does suffer from the 3-fighter warband syndrome. Like, with one goes down, you feel that you're short a fighter.
Yeah.
But with rivals and damage not being everywhere early game, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
All right. So I want to up my game and I want to move to Rivals Plus. Do we have a recommendation for a deck to build with?
We have a
essentials.
A tentative recommendation.
Just go no.
Well,
other than essentials,
right? I mean, essentials has all of its beautiful things. I mean, they once inspired, they're all on 3 dice. Oh no, just kidding. Skull Grinder is not. So, just kidding. Maybe Branch of Fate isn't the card for them.
So you can add a dice, right? So.
You could add a dice, yeah. So you get there. And it's got the damage upgrades. But I really think Vainglorious Raiders is probably the best slot in if you're going to add cards. So you've got, the Contest of Equals, which can be scored in your opponent's activation. You could score that actually in your activation by enraging someone, right? Like, it could happen.
Yep.
But like Sudden Revelation is so like relatively easy to score. You want to be midfield anyway, so like you could place your tokens appropriately. Shadow Elimination is a little iffy. But like, it's not out of the realm of possibility for, in the second or third action phase for Dromm to be charging his way into enemy territory. But then there's good upgrades. Live for the Fight helps with the +1 dice. Shadow Lore pushing towards an empty hex or moving a feature token. We talked about it last time, but like Reckless Rush. If you really needed to get the Gorehulk stuck in deep, you could double his move characteristic. So
yeah, Reckless Rush. Love that card. I might even go and throw in a Down with the Ship.
I mean, Friendly Fighter's attack action that takes an enemy leader in enemy territory out of action. You have a lot of control over where
they are. Like, normally I wouldn't. Like, I mean, because we've seen these where take the enemy leader out and score glory. But the fact that I probably can set up where that enemy leader is having to charge in and get stuck, and then I can just beat up on that enemy leader.
Yeah.
I don't know. There might be some play there.
Yeah. Well, no, like I'm looking at like the card art, and it's got one of the Shadeborn on there, like the Shadow Queen herself, right? Like, nobody does anything with her for 3 activations in turn 1.
Yeah.
Because she's the only one that can teleport, and then they hopefully use some pushes to get her off of her starting hex, and she can do her thing. But you could just be like, okay, it's the first activation. Dromm is going to discard his Blood Tithe counter, and the Shadow Queen is going to charge.
Yeah, they'd have to not be in a starting hex, but you are right. Like,
yeah.
I am now dictating that you're charging.
Yep. And now all of your teleport I mean, sure, you're setting up there and like we could spiral out of control with like
Yes.
all of the why you should or shouldn't or whatever. But yeah, like I don't hate it for them. Yeah, like
That's
Fearless
it.
Seekers could be good.
Yeah, there's
Brave Advance.
there's enough because you're not really worried about damage.
Right.
This warband.
Yeah.
So I think that adds something. The only thing that I wish there was other than Shadow Spear is I think that this warband, especially in Championship, if you can add the range 3 or the range 4, much like my Morgok build for Nova, like if I can add distance attacks to just get tithe counters,
yes,
it can really, really, really benefit. I mean, Shadow Spear can help you here, but other than that, there's not much
right.
weapon upgrades that really change what I'm doing. But there's enough here to build with that I think you can make a solid Rivals Plus deck and have some fun with it.
Yep.
Cool. I think that's it. I think that is, the Gorechosen of Dromm. I'm real excited to get the models next week. And then just, a little shout out. What the hex? Thank you for posting the cards, the art. Thank you to McCrat getting him into Underworld's DB. Thank you to Zach and Amon for getting the previews out so quick, because we do not get the cool stuff, but so it is because they get everything out so quick that we're able to do these reviews on day one. Into the wee hours of the morning. So thank you all for that, so we could do that. And that does it for Dromm, the Gorechosen crushes of the underworlds. We'll be back to go through Deadly Depths.
And we're back, and we are rip-roaring ready to talk about this Deadly Depths Rivals deck. Yeah. So
rip-roaring. It's almost pumpkin time.
It is almost pumpkin time. On day 2 of recording. I know, right? I am rip-roaring ready to get this recorded so that I can get it done, so that I can edit a podcast, so that I can publish it, so that people can listen to it. People like my mom and your mom and Trace's mom.
But not Danny's mom.
Our 10 of listeners.
There we go.
Anyway, so classic Rivals review. We're going to go through the top cards that you want early. So with that, we'll just dive right into these Deadly Depths.
Ooh, are they deadly?
It would not be a Battle Mallet podcast with just an inordinate number of puns and plays on words. Fighters to review. Oh wait, there are none, because this is a Rivals deck that it's not attached to a warband. So let's kick things off with objectives. Jason?
Well, you want to really kick things off? I think I should give the good old Jerod. This deck only has 3 surges. So
that's true. Yeah. Thanks for covering that base.
We don't have a cornucopia of choices, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Just saying.
No. We are not. We might be hungry for choices when it comes to surges.
The surge pool is not deep. So the one that we did select is Surging Darkness. Score this immediately after an activation step if 2 or more friendly fighters with charge tokens are on feature tokens. And the fact that we're picking that one should tell you everything you need to know about the surges. There is another one that you kill somebody that are standing on a cover hex or feature token, which isn't bad. But at least in this one, if I'm playing a ranged warband, I can probably get this off because it is a feature token. It's a little bit more difficult if you're playing a range 1 warband. So
yeah, for sure.
That's the surge I'm looking for to try to start this glory train.
Yep. Yeah. So and then we'll just jump to in phase. So these are in phase cards that you're going to want earlier in the game if you're playing in the Rivals format. And so the first one we picked out is Blood in the Deeps. And so we're going to have a little caveat here. A War in the Shadows and Blood in the Deeps are worded in a way that we have not seen to date. So Blood in the Deeps is the one we picked. The score condition is the same for A War in the Shadows, and it is a duel. Score this in an end phase if, during the previous activation step, one or more enemy fighters were taken out of action, and one or more friendly fighters are within 1 hex of a feature token. So I don't think that we have seen an end phase card that says during the previous activation step to date. So
well, activation step isn't new, like it's in the rule book, but I don't
right.
remember recalling seeing a lot of cards refer to the activation step.
Yeah, you score this immediately after an activation, or
yes,
or whatever the case is. So I wonder, just wondering out loud, if maybe this is a typo, misprint, or something, and it is supposed to be during the previous action phase, because we have seen cards with that wording before.
Yes. Because if it is just the last activation step of a round, then this card is not great.
Right. Yeah. Like, what if you never go last?
Yes.
You can't score this card. So, but presuming that our wondering is correct, this is actually a pretty decent one glory end phase, right? Like, it's not over the top, but it's fairly easy to set up. You still do have to take somebody out, but having a friendly fighter within 1 hex of a feature token, I mean, is pretty easy to set up.
Yeah.
And so it's like a cheaper, easier to score path to glory.
Well,
so
yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So, all right.
It just pairs well with like range 1 fighters, right? Because you could just kill somebody that's on a feature token, be standing there and score it. And again, it's 1 glory, so that's why I tend to believe it is the whole of all the activation steps in the turn. So
right.
All right, and then the third one, Plumbing the Depths. I like the name of the card. It's dig deep, find the prey, leave them nowhere to hide. And this is a end phase, 2 glory end phase, where if you have a fighter, let's just read instead of trying to summarize, right? Score this in the end phase if one or more friendly fighters are in a cover hex, one or more friendly fighters are on a feature token, and one or more friendly fighters are in a lethal hex. So we haven't seen lethal hexes in a very long time in the game, right? Like, they're still on the boards, but they don't normally come into play. But the reason I like this one is because the cover hex and the feature token, if you're in a gloom, that's 1 fighter, 2 checks.
Yep.
So then all I have to have is somebody else in a lethal. I can score this in the back of my board. It doesn't matter what's going on, and it's 2 glory. That's a great way to start.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have a wounded fighter because you had to move them into a lethal hex, like, to get 2 glory in the first end phase out of potentially 2 activations is that's not bad.
Not bad.
I'll take it.
I like it.
So we've already covered. There's a lot of feature tokens, cover hexes. So there'll be some caveats to the gambits here, and your gambits are really going to fuel your ability. But the first gambit that you're probably going to want to see early is a Hungry Darkness, and it's pick 1 feature token, push that feature token 1 hex closer to the nearest enemy fighter. So this could slide a feature token under an enemy fighter to set up, some of the other objectives that you have, or to set up some of the other gambits that are in the deck. Or if you drop a feature token behind one of your starting hexes, then you could play this card and push that feature token under one of your own fighters. So it's got some utility. It is a push. I do want to point out that it is a push. You're just not pushing a fighter. You're pushing a feature token. So my streak continues.
There you go. And I think, to really just drive home how important this card could be to the deck, there are a lot of objectives where enemies have to be in and around feature tokens, but really there are some great gambits in the deck. For example, Knives in the Dark, which is a +1 damage, but the enemy has to be standing on a feature token.
Right.
There's Murderous Tides, which is +1 dice. For supporting that one's actually kind of cool because it persists. There's the what is the ambush one?
Amphibious Ambush.
There you go, Amphibious Ambush.
You get Cleave and Grievous.
Cleave and Grievous, which is fantastic, but again, the enemy has to be on a feature token.
Right.
So that's why we want to get this out quick. So if we have these other gambits, we can kind of set up the most powerful gambits or cards in our deck. So
but
that's cool.
without having an enemy fighter on a feature token, those gambits, like, if you don't have a way to control that situation, then those gambits aren't going to be as valuable early.
Correct.
Yep. So a Hungry Darkness. What's next?
The next one is the walls are closing in.
It feels like that sometimes, doesn't it?
It does. And at the end of the next activation step, deal 1 damage to each fighter in an edge hex.
Yep.
So you're going to play this in a power step, then someone's going to activate, whether it's you or your opponent. And then after that activation, you're going to deal 1 damage to every fighter in an edge hex.
Yep.
So you play it going into your turn.
That's right.
You move everybody out of the edge hexes and
That's
hope
right.
your opponent just has everybody there.
Yep. Well, and then you do that. So, let's just dip into championship. So you do that with the domain, where at the end of the action phase.
Action phase, yep.
Everybody that's on an edge hex takes 1 damage. So, like, RIP, all those little 2-win fighters sitting on edge hexes. And I think the important thing for this one is, if you're really going to play into it, you probably want to set up either an offset or a longboard to really maximize the number of edge hexes. Yeah. So cool. So there's a Hungry Darkness. The walls are closing in. Jason, we must go deeper. Our favorite game. It's a story in 3 parts. And I'm glad that I get to pick this one, because it's choose up to 2 friendly fighters. Push the chosen fighter's 1 hex. After that push, each chosen fighter must be in a cover hex or in enemy territory. So again, you're either setting yourself up to score some of those objectives, or even be in a position to use those gambits that require you to be on a cover hex, or you're just pushing yourself around in enemy territory. If you're on no man's land or you're already in enemy territory, you can push 1 hex in any direction and you're still in enemy territory. I think the flavor text for this is really good. It says Shrikatljarl. That's Duke Crackmarrow, which apparently translates to onwards for the oaths we have sworn in the honor of the king. But in Ghoul speak, it is Shrikatljarl. Yep, that's good. That's going to be my new online handle. Yeah. Just call me Shrikatljarl.
If you go to that, all I'm going to say is Ricola, because I'm not. Yeah, that's not coming out of my mouth.
Yep. That's as far as we'll get there. All right. So moving on. So upgrades that you want to see early. What are we looking for here?
What are we looking for? Well, we've picked 3 of them. The one that I really want to see is Cursed Boarding Axe. Only because it is a great attack action.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
4 dice on Fury, 2 damage, and has cleave. I mean, that is a solid. The only downside to this is the bounty gained when an enemy fighter is taken out of action by this attack action is spent glory, unless this fighter is on a feature token.
Yeah.
So you're still going to get the glory. You just might not be able to spend it again. But that is a really good attack. I will take 4 dice every day.
Right. Yeah. So because you've got cleave, but you're also fishing for that crit chance. So like there's
that crit.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't even need cleave at that point.
That's right.
So the next one that we want to talk about is Darkwater Anchor. There's a lot more ranged attacks in the game. And so there's a primary, that's the first benefit, but I think the second benefit of the card really outweighs anything. So -1 damage to range 3+ attack actions that target this fighter to a minimum of 1, right? So, your Orlock, your Celestis, your Glory Seeker, Murkrow, or whatever is only ever going to do 1 damage at a time, or -1 damage.
-1 damage.
Yeah. So, but in addition, this fighter cannot be pushed by enemy warbands. So you can't be driven back. You can't be pushed. So if we're talking championship format, there's no Hypnotic Buzz. There's none of the, in-faction distractions like Terrifying Screams or Ferocious Growl.
Well, yes, Growl. I think it's a Growl.
Yeah.
Predatory Growl.
Predatory Growl. That's it.
But in this deck specifically, because it is so feature token heavy or cover hex heavy,
Right.
the inability to push or even be driven off the objective can really come into play. So that's why I think that in this deck specifically, like you want Dark Water Anchor, and in Championship, anytime you can't be pushed is good.
I agree.
And then the last upgrade that we would like to see is Lurking Horror. This is a +1 dice to the fighter's attack action. After this fighter's attack roll, remove 1 attack dice from that roll. So basically, you're getting +1 dice, get to see what the dice are, and then you eliminate 1. So yeah, It's really only 2 dice, but I'm rolling 3. It's almost like a reroll, but I will take those 3 dice.
Yep.
And I'm going to keep my 2 crits.
There you go.
And then there's also reaction. So after your activation step, if this fighter is in a cover hex, push this fighter 1 hex. It's a reaction, so you don't have to do it, but it is a way to get a little more movement out of the fighter if need be.
Yep.
Just remember, once the shadows take you, there is no escape.
None. No escape. All right, so that covers, the Rivals kind of format review, the cards that we want to see early, what we think is going to help you most as you're coming out the gate. So the next question is, what boards do we want? And I think that our Plumbing the Depths objective kind of fuels this decision.
Yep, pick one that you like that has a lethal on it.
Yep.
There you go. We needed to score Plumbing the Depths.
Yeah. And then beyond that, you just want to pick a board that's going to suit your Warband's play style. So, if you're aggro, make sure you've got, starting hexes close to enemy territory. You've got favorable positioning for your feature tokens. All those things that you're thinking about anyway. You just need 1 lethal hex so you can score Plumbing the Depths. Jason, what's the play style?
That's a good question. I mean, it's just kind of like a flex aggro hold. You need to hold feature tokens,
right?
But that there's still a couple objectives and a couple gambits in here that want you to attack. So it is that traditional. We're gonna hold our spots. We're gonna go to our objectives or feature tokens and try to murder anyone that comes at me.
Yeah.
In those spots. So, yeah, that's how I would sum up this Rivals deck.
Yeah.
Play the long game.
Maybe with a long board.
There you go.
I don't know. So the next question we want to ask is, if you're playing against this deck, you realize your opponent is using the Deadly Depths deck. What's your kind of primary focus when you're playing against it? And I think it's easy enough. Just avoid the cover hexes and feature tokens. Right? Like they have stuff that scores that requires you to be on feature tokens or cover hexes. They have gambits that are more powerful if you're in a feature token or a cover hex. So just stay out of them, and you'll rob them some glory, and you'll remove some of the utility of their deck.
Yeah, I would definitely stay out of them because the utility is gone. The other thing I would add is wait for them to make the first move, and when they get onto one of those feature tokens, try to push them off or attack them to get them off.
Yeah.
That leads us to rating, right?
No, not yet.
Oh, not yet?
No, yeah, we didn't have any fighters to review for this deck, so we need to pick a favorite warband.
Oh, I think there's only one favorite warband I have with this deck.
Yilthari's Guardians?
Sure. You try it.
Yeah.
Let me know how it worked out for you.
Not well, I'm sure.
I think the Shadow Elves love a lot of cards that are in here. Kind of fits their play style anyway. So I would definitely try that. And then really any other warband that does flex aggro well. There may be some play with Dread Pageant here because they have some pushes where you can control where the enemy is.
Yeah.
And set up some things. They have a way to heal, because there is a objective where you're going to take a damage if you score it.
Yeah.
They also have a little bit of damage mitigation. You got the Cursed Boarding Axe to beef up maybe Hadzu. So I'm probably stretching with that selection,
Sure.
but it's not terrible to try it.
Right.
Anything else that you think would fit?
Well, I mean, it's funny. Every time we think about, well, what deck should we use with the Rivals deck, I have a hard time not mentioning the Crimson Court just because they've got good stat blocks out the gate. But you're not tying into the hunger mechanic at all. But they don't necessarily need it, right? Like, it can be good, but I think it could be fun. So, from a rival standpoint, what's the new player rating?
From a rival standpoint, I'm sorry, I'm giving this one a bronze.
Yeah.
Just if I'm playing this deck just straight up, there is a lot of situational cards in here that you're going to have to work to pull off. And sometimes they're going to work and they're going to work great and you're going to score a lot of glory. The deck does have 19 glory, which is really high ceiling for the objectives. But I'm probably never going to score Desperate Truth. Like, it's probably just not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, and with only 3 surges, you're not going to be able to cycle through your deck anyway.
Yeah.
So it just makes it tough.
This is not my favorite.
No, that's okay. They can't all be our favorite.
No, they cannot.
No, because when everything is the favorite, then nothing is. To paraphrase Syndrome from The Incredibles. All right, Rivals Plus.
Okay, so for Rivals Plus, again, I'm going right to Shadow Elves. I think that this deck for Rivals Plus actually fits a lot of holes that you can build around with them. The only thing that I would say with building is your warband selection needs to have a good surge pool.
Yes.
And you need to be playing into this play style of hold objectives or hold feature tokens anyway.
Right.
Then there are maybe a lot of cards in here that you do want to select out from an objective standpoint. And again, if you can dictate where the engagements are taking place from an enemy standpoint, there are some really good gambits in there.
That's true. Yeah.
There's some plink damage in here, like we talked about. The walls are closing in, but you also have an upgrade, Umbral Stigmata. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. You got it.
Which can deal a damage to somebody on a feature token. So there's some cool little tricks in here for certain warbands. Just you would really have to know your plan with your warband to select this.
Right. I'd agree with that.
But, Jerod, there are some really single good cards in here.
Yes.
Like from a championship setting, there is a lot of flavor here where you can really add something to your championship deck.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, we mentioned it in the pre-show, but like Mask of Shadows, this is an illusion. This fighter cannot be the target of an attack action unless the attacker is adjacent. Do you know who would love that card? The man who already has no mouth. Dintalos himself.
The dentist? This is a dentist card?
It is a dentist card.
Well, yeah.
For somebody to not, because what was our big thing in our episode when we talked about them? Use your range 2 attacks.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
To get over the zombie line. Well, tough nuggets. You can't target me with attack actions unless you're next to me. And if you're next to the dentist attacking him, either things have gone horribly wrong for the exiled dead player, or you have set yourself up for some extreme hurting. So
for extreme hurting is a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
A whole lot of zombies just biting at your heels.
Yeah, just ready to chomp down on you. So, yeah, I think that there are I think there's definitely some nuggets in here. I mean, just, lurking horror just in championship format to be able to add dice and remove dice, and then the reaction to push off. I mean, heck, Gallows Humor is in there. After an activation step in which one or more fighters were taken out of action, push this fighter 1 hex. It doesn't say which activation step. So it doesn't say which direction you have to push. And it's a reaction, so you don't have to do it. But, like, you could be bouncing somebody with a range 2 attack around as, your own fighters are getting killed, or some other fighter from your warband took somebody out of action. So
yeah, and you're reacting in your opponent's, right? Like if you're going and I'm reacting during your turn, like you could stop a wolf bite with that, right?
That's true. You could.
Not that I've been bitten by wolves lately.
No.
Nope, not at all.
Nope.
The one that I kind of liked that it probably won't see a ton of play, but it's waist deep, because it reminds me of back in the day where
the invisible walls.
The invisible walls. So it's really cool that you can take the move characteristic down to 2. Granted, it has a caveat that they can't be on a feature token, or if they start on a feature token, it doesn't affect them, but it could be a really cool way to block a charge.
Yep. Or mess up a dance dynamic.
Yeah. Especially when they've had upgraded to get 4 move or more.
So. Yep. Could mess up Zarbag's get scurry.
Could. Love the move shenanigans. And well, again, probably doesn't make the cut, but it's cool to see that kind of card back.
Yeah. I agree. Anything else?
The only other card I want to call out for Championship, because I like the little flavor text at the bottom, and it kind of is in another supremacy, is Lost Together. So could you imagine running like Death and playing the 2 supremacy cards and have Lost Together? Now it is a 3rd end phase score, but it is score this in the 3rd end phase if there are 2 or more surviving friendly fighters, and each of those fighters is on an objective token in the same territory. So it's a hold 2 3rd end phase for 3 glory.
Yeah.
And I like the flavor text. You are not lost. We are not lost. None of us are lost. Am I clear?
Slink, Skittershank.
Yep. Skittershank is just yelling at his brats. So.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Well, I think that'll wrap us up. And when we come back, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we actually were able to get Gerard the professor on to record with us to talk about his Nova experience and kind of his thoughts on the troll himself, Mr. Mollog the Mighty. So we'll take a break and we'll be right back.
And we're back. And we have a very special guest with us tonight. Grand Clash winner of Nova, Gerard the Professor. Welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Hello, guys. It's always great to be here.
So this is our kind of Nova recap episode with Underworlds. We went through Jerod and my experience at Nova, but you had a much different one. So just tell me, like, overall, how was your Nova experience outside of Underworlds?
I mean, Nova was just fantastic. I mean, we had been all huddled down, in COVID land for 2 years, and just going back to a big con. I guess I had been to Adepticon, half a year ago, but just the energy of a big con, it really is something different, right? The people, everybody with their little works of love that they've created in the bonds going up. It's just fantastic. And then, of course, catching up with, people that I literally hadn't seen in the flesh for 3 years, like you guys. So this was, it was nice. It was very, very nice. It was, we had this grand clash that it was more like a, medium-sized, rather little clash, I'd say. Hey. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, you guys were there. Where it was basically, it was. The truth is, it looked. I mean, when I look at the people I played against for what was it, like my 4 matches, this could have easily been a second day of a grand clash, at least in the US. I mean, these were like the usual suspects. So
yeah, everyone that played was very knowledgeable of the game. So even though there was only 11, everyone knew what they were doing. So
yeah,
exactly.
That's great.
Yeah. So it was nice. The camaraderie, it was nice. I really, these experiences, we need to treasure them now that we cannot take them for granted. Right?
Yeah.
We really need to treasure them.
Lock those memories away. Cherish them. Caress them softly.
So how much have you played in person since? I mean, obviously you went to Adepticon, but other than that, have you been getting a lot of in-person play in?
No, not as much as I'd hope. So the as you know, I spent the summers in Barcelona in Spain, and there's a little, there is a meta, that organizes typically you can go to a tournament once a month or so. But the truth is, the game is not, as you know, is not thriving. So basically, these tournaments, if you get 8 people, you're happy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope. I still think it's basically the best game that GW puts out there. So I'm hoping that we will, the energy will rekindle. But bottom line, no, I'm not having as much as much in-person gaming as I would like.
I thought you maybe wreaked havoc over in Barcelona all summer and came back and just unleashed on us.
No, absolutely not. In fact, if you know the preparation for Nova was truly. So I had been in Barcelona playing basically for a month straight the Ninja Rats, the Skitter Squad, which are just such a fun warband. But frankly, not doing particularly well. And then basically in August, I just hadn't played, not even in Barcelona. I fly back like a week and a half before Nova. I say, well, we need to decide what to play. And first I thought, well, maybe I should go back to my Banshees, which are I love those guys. But then I thought, I'm so rusty that it's going to be pathetic. Those guys are really finesse, right? So I thought, no, you know what? Let me just take something that I can roll dice and just go crazy, right? So that was my original plan. And that's why, let's just make people nervous. Let's take Moloch, start skiting for 3, and let's go. Build up a deck. And thank God, and all that is holy, that Martin Higham, God's War Gamer in Basel, and Zach, our very own Zach Newcomb, gave me a couple of games.
Yeah.
Like a week and a half before, and I realized that my original plan really didn't work at all. So my original plan had Horrors in the Dark, and it had Fearless Seekers, because the idea was I'm going to put the rock like in an objective in opponent's territory, and then I'm going to move in with the troll, and I'm going to be bashing people, and it's going to be great, there's Into the Fray, there's this new card, from Destruction, I said, this is all great, right? So I had this nice looking deck. And long story short, the troll and Rocky just die. They just die. They die very quickly, like you wouldn't believe it. So quick. The truth is, 7 wounds in this meta seems like a lot, but it really isn't, actually. So then I thought, well, back to the drawing board, what the heck do I do? And now it's like 1 week for Nova. Right? Can I completely redraw this deck so that actually I don't need to go into the opponent's territory if I don't want to? And if you take a look at my deck, you can put a link, I guess, in the show notes at some point. It's exactly a deck that doesn't force me to go anywhere, right?
You just want to bash. You just want to.
I bash basically, exactly. I'm staying basically around the midline and bashing people as they come. So the idea being, if I'm playing against aggro, they're going to come to me anyway. And of course, only if I'm playing against fully dedicated hold objective, I go in and try to basically kill as much as possible. That was basically the idea. So that was, and then, in every game, try to mulligan and desperately fish for Foul Temper, because that's the card that gives you love.
That's the card.
That's the card. And hope for the best. If you take a look at the deck, I also thought that I would have one last big bash for Primacy. There was a lot of Primacy shenanigans in the deck, including this. I really fell in love with this card. Master Duelist was absolutely brilliant for Moloch. So to be able to, you discard. So this card is not that common. So it's a card where you discard the Primacy token, and then you get to do an attack with +2 dice. And it's range 1 or range 2, which, as you know, we don't have a lot of range 2 accuracy. The beauty of this, when you think about this, is that you can recycle the Primacy token.
Yep.
Yes.
You discard the Primacy token, bash somebody. If you one-shot them, get the Primacy token back, which means you can do it next activation and next activation as long as you have people around. So this one, I squeezed quite a bit of value out of this card. in several matchups. And the final thing that you absolutely need, at least I do, I certainly need to win one of these, is just spectacular amounts of luck at crucial points. I mean, I know poor Jerod was the he really drew the short stick several times in our games, especially I think in both games, right? I won basically first activation in the second phase in situations in both games where Moloch was basically one hit from dying. And of course, the whole situation changes, right? You go first, kill whoever was about to kill you. And on top of that, you have one full power step to put upgrades, more wounds, heal the guy, whatever, right? So, and this happened. Actually, I think the most extreme case, frankly, sorry, Jerod, I think it was against you.
No. Yeah. So
the most egregious case, yeah.
Yeah, you weren't recording with us yet. We talked about my games, and I didn't get into it because I was playing aggro as well. You live by the dice, you die by the dice, and they are what they are. But yeah, there was it
was kind of crazy over 2 games that it was so one-sided.
It was. But I said it before, I'll say it again. I had a ton of fun. I mean, having 2 destruction warbands just going in and smacking each other around.
It was fun, brutal, actually.
Regardless,
yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's fun.
And we both were trying to keep. There was a lot of kind of next level gaming with the primacy token. Right, because you were playing, and we were basically what I remember. I had my feint strength that I would wait at some crucial moment to the maximum irritation. At this point now,
That's right.
let me steal the primacy token from him. It was a bash. So and imagine, so I play you first round, and then second round, then I have to play Jimmy. Completely different warband, right? Playing skeletons, right? Completely different.
Did you practice in the Jimmy at all?
No. No, we I mean, as you know, like we knew what we were bringing.
Yeah.
But we actually didn't play a game. I'm now thinking, thank God, because I pulled a couple of nasty things on him that maybe if he had seen. But it was actually, again, same thing. You have to get lucky. So especially in the second game, if I remember correctly, against Jimmy, he was clearly fishing for dark inversion.
Yeah.
And didn't get it, right? So he drops his power, draws up again, and in the first activation he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
At which point I ran a squeak bat, onto the other objective on my side and say, well, now if you draw it, I'm done, right? Because I have the Rocky on one, squeak bat on the other,
right?
And now you cannot dark invert anything. Right.
Yeah.
So that was so because otherwise, like his deck is brutal, so he can score like 20 glory on you just holding.
Yeah. So so you're playing Jimmy, but what, like, leading up to the events, other than you just wanted to bash stuff, we talked about this yesterday when we recorded our segment on Nova, but didn't you think the meta was going to be more of that, like more of a Jimmy style deck of like more hold or feature token style?
You know what I was aggro? So I was of 2 minds, because I thought also, what if people show up with zombies?
Yeah.
Zombies are brutal. They are really brutal. And in fact, it was a couple of games against zombies that told me that I couldn't go forward with Moloch. Like, they eat Moloch. It's kind of amazing, actually.
Yeah.
they can exactly. They can take that. They can eat Crucius in one go. They can eat Moloch in one go. It's kind of amazing the amount of damage these guys put forward, right?
Yeah.
But there wasn't a single one of them. I actually think they're actually very good. It's just that they also have some bad matchups. I mean, that's the right.
Yeah.
So the truth is, but I think that sense, the meta is really wide open right now. I mean, there's you can do very well holding objectives. You can do very well with something like zombies again that just goes forward. The Hexbane Hunters are actually really good. They may even be top. I think they're actually top shelf. They have amazing. They're probably the most accurate warband off the gate. Because of the doggies, right? Like But on the other hand, if they they cannot take a hit, right? So so that's why I love the design of that warband. Yeah. So that's why there is a lot of there's a lot of back and forth. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I was surprised of having 2 Crucius running around there.
Yeah.
But once I learned that the Vita rule wouldn't be in place, then I said, Actually, that makes sense now.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, because that's what I thought it was going to be, a little more hold or a little more gloom, like searching for feature tokens.
Yeah.
And I definitely was teched for zombies. Like, I thought we would see zombies.
Exactly.
But anyway, you're playing skeletons. Jimmy doesn't get dark inversion. So how did you avoid like not getting slain by the champion or the harvester? Because can put out damage.
Yes, but there's always finesse in these matchups. You let these guys charge you once, and you don't touch them, right? If they can the worst thing you can do against a good skeleton player is to keep killing their champion, right? And then instead of eating one charge by this guy, you're going to eat 2 or 3 or 4, right? Yeah. So that's why basically that's to be fair, this is one advantage of playing something beefy like Moloch. He can take a 2 damage hit.
Sure.
Right. So then you are there, the champion comes in, it hits you for 2, and you leave him, and then that's it. You're done with the champion for that phase, and go kill other stuff. Right. So in this case, it worked out. In the first game, I managed to cheekily kill the warden at the end of the first phase, and that made it very uphill for him, actually, in the first phase.
How'd you get that deep into his territory?
So we didn't play, right? Gerald, I had my deck was actually chock full of pushes also.
Yeah.
So and in fact, funny enough, a lot of the pushes I would use to get back, right? Go in, kill something, and then kind of, commanding strike out of range.
Right.
But in the case of Jimmy, I realized I had come in to beat something up. And then in the last I was last in my last activation. I said, well, actually, if I get into here, the warden is trapped against, because he had put the warden at the very end, right?
Yep.
And the water was trapped. And even though I didn't have any accuracy, but I thought, well, I think I have to go for it. So I went for it. The warden was trapped, 2 hammers, and it actually, it hit.
Right.
So, and then of course it was uphill after that for him. Once it's not only that the warden is dead, it's that I think he hadn't played partial resurrection yet. Like a lot of things become useless in the hand, right?
Right.
And again, that was the first game. And the second game, he got to set up boards. He put them longwise. But then that meant that I had 3 objectives, and then I got this lucky break that he didn't have dark inversion. So then he still had to come to the central melee to score his hold objectives, and then I could just go according to plan, basically. Yeah, take the charge of the champion, ignore him, and go for the other guys as you could. If you play skeletons, what you want to do is take the maximum amount of damage on the petitioners, right? If they have to spend activations bringing petitioners back, you're fine.
Yeah.
And it's still always touch and go, right? Because there's so much plus damage in the game these days that you may be okay taking a damage 2 hit from the champions, but a damage 4, that's a harder proposition, right?
Yeah.
And there is a lot of that. So you also need to get lucky when at some point. Yeah. So it was a great game, a great series. Then I played this guy Jonathan Kwok. I think he's a local. Exactly, he's a local. Yeah. And same thing. At some point in the first game, he had Moloch to kill, and he missed that attack. I remember, and then I could roll back from that. I think the second game was better on my side, but in the first game, it was that lucky. And
that was my second round opponent, and he was teched for aggro. So
he was.
If you got him to miss an attack, now you're like, it was the same with our matchup. If he would have missed attack, now I can swing back for free. He comes into you, he misses an attack, you're swinging back for free.
Yeah,
exactly.
Moloch's even better because you're range 2. So
exactly. So you can push back, hit. Exactly. So basically, in the game against him, I just really tried to abuse the range. Because all the guys hit hard, but they're only range 2, right? Mm-hmm. Range 1, sorry, the crashes. But man, they are. For example, this made it. Actually, in one of the games, he was actually able to do the, how it's called, the return attack.
Yeah.
Because
reprisal.
Exactly, because I actually I don't remember the situation, but I actually had to get into an adjacent hex to hit the guy, and that was brutal, as the name indicates, because that actually hit. I think that's actually what happened right before, because I wasn't counting on that, and then that meant that I had like Moloch sitting on like two hit points left, and then he managed to miss. So it was anyway, again, very good player also, actually. Very good. And then in the final, this we know, I think we all know that Derek was going to come down from Canada with a Shadeborn, right? This we know. And he did actually, this was actually an interesting game in which I was very afraid of him jumping to my backline and killing the squeaks. And the first game begins, and he actually begins with 4 charges on Moloch.
Oh, wow.
With all of them. Okay, I had been stupid enough to leave Moloch in range because I thought that he would go past. So the first phase ends, and Moloch is sitting again on 2 hit points. But I think at that point, I had actually been able to kill 2 of the elves.
Yeah.
Right. And then I think same thing that as with Jerod. I win initiative in the second round for the second phase, and I had Spirit Come on my hand. So I beat somebody up, put an upgrade, which I think the third one that I needed, the glory, Spirit Come. Now it's back to 4. Now it's way harder for him.
Yeah.
So that was basically the story of the first game, and the second one went actually very similar. So in both games, basically he ended up with the lady with the leader alive, because as you know, these guys, when they put enough defensive upgrades on them, like whatever, basically forget, like you have Slyfell with extra defense, and on top of that,
you're on 3 defense dice, and the only thing that's a failure is a shield, and
exactly. So basically, but it was fun.
But like a reroll and probably a minus dice in there, all this stuff going on.
But it was good enough for demolish the opposition, right? So I would just go hunt the other elves, and that was it. And then after the game, actually, we were talking. It's like, I was surprised. I thought that you would go in the past, and I think he got it right, Derek. I mean, by going after the troll rather than the squeaks, because he said, look, if I go, I can charge the squeaks, but then I've charged, and then you can just move back and bash my head. So he thought, like, if I start really strong, I mean, when you think about this, these guys they are all damaged too, except the one combo, which actually in the first game hit both attacks, by the way. So the truth is, if you get slightly above average dice, you could actually get rid of Moloch right then and there, and then you're done, right?
Right.
So it's not a bad strategy at all, because you're hitting before you're upgraded too, right? Like maybe you're scoring 3-4 glory, and you can get 1 or 2 of your damage mitigation upgrades out. But
so it really wasn't a bad call. The only downside that call had was that, of course, he wasn't scoring his objectives either, right? Because he was just, So basically, he gets to the end of the first phase. Moloch is handling by a threat, but he had scored like maybe 1 thing, like 1 glory and 1 surge or something. While I had a little bit more, because if you look at my deck, I had a bit more passive, wasteland, anyway, a bunch of things. And then I could put then foul temper comes in, and then you start playing the sprinkler, right? So it was, but again, of course, Derek, really good player. So it was another night. Anyway, bottom line, I just can't believe that after playing kind of all these people, I just managed to go like, I guess, 8-0 that day. It was just crazy. I mean, I really got lucky. Really got lucky when I needed to. I think that's what it comes down to. It. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a great day.
I think that's the icing on the cake, Gerard. I think you're selling your own skill a little short to say that you won because you got lucky at the right time.
There was, I guess my brain was also firing in all cylinders, but my brain power is still not strong enough to make dice fail.
That's fair, yeah.
So I mean, I would hope so, but it's I still haven't perfected that one. Yeah. As you see, I'm converging to Professor Xavier's close, but not, but still not there yet. Anyway, it was just a lot of fun. I mean, I hope this game needs to kind of come back from the ashes because it's just brilliant. And as we said, there's so many ways to play the game, right? You can play hold objective, you can go aggro, you can go flex now. You can, I mean, there's you can stack up wounds to make your guys unkillable, but then you don't do other stuff, right? You can, there are fast warbands. There's these new guys, the hexbanes. You kill them, but they actually get way stronger when you kill them. So it's there's a lot of warbands now that ask very specific questions. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, Jerod and I were talking last night, just friendly banter, and I said one of my hardest things of Underworlds now is I don't get to play with all of my toys. Like, you've played since the beginning. Like, there was a time where you could go a whole season, play every warband, and still be knowledgeable enough of all the other warbands. Now there's just so many warbands that you can't. Like, you really need to specialize in one or two and kind of know what the meta is, but it is really, really cool, the state of the game.
And the warbands have also become more complex. Yeah, I mean, they have specific mechanics. They are just more complex, right? Shadespire was beautiful in simplicity. You had 3-4 dudes, move forward, beat people up. That was, there wasn't that I like simplicity. Exactly. Yeah. Now, like these people that are really good at playing Cunning Crew, it's amazing.
It is.
Right? They have to plan like chat or whatever, right? They have to plan like 4 moves ahead. I have this grot here and this grot there, and it's kind of amazing, right? Yeah. The people that are really good playing Elephane, same thing, right? Mm-hmm. They have to plan 2-3 moves ahead where I'm putting the fish token, the fish needs to show up. It's kind of
I laugh because Jerod is really good at the fish token.
Flipping hate that. I'm so bad at it. I cannot play that
my
warband.
Token.
And I Jason. I mean, it didn't matter because there were no Soul Raid there, but Jason and I were prepping for Nova, and I felt bad, and I'm like, you should probably play Morgoth into Soul Raid.
Exactly. Yeah, you should.
But I can't do that for you, Jason, because it will not be a true test experience because we will be 3 activations in, and I have forgotten to put Soul Token down.
The token, exactly. Yeah. So it's so there's that. Then again, I think as much as the zombies. Very complex warband also, right?
Yeah.
So there's I think Hexbane Hunters, actually I haven't played with them. I have played against them, and you can see also a lot of things to keep. The doggies, where you have to remember where to put the doggies. Which of these hunters do you put up front to be killed first? Because you want the one in the back to be souped up. It's it is more complex. It's a nicer game this way. I mean, the warbands are more complex, right? I mean,
it is 100%. But like, I don't want to take away from Mollog 1. I'm glad that the internet can erupt that Mollog won an event again. Like, that makes me happy that we still have the Mollog hate out there.
But like, a certain friend said, a certain friend that gave me practice games said, Mollog? I haven't seen Mollog do well in a long time. And it was, that's we're gonna try. Let's make Mollog great again.
Nice.
And
there you go. Did you get a hat? Mollog
exactly.
MMGA hats running around the internet now.
Exactly. MMGA hats. That's exactly. We could get a sculpt of Mollog with a certain face of a certain president, but that's anyway.
Oh, you went there. So the cool thing, like, is though, because even though Mollog is bash, right? Like, when everyone sees Mollog, they're like, oh, like, you need the dice, it's aggro, it's this. I am not good at single fighter warbands. Like, I've tried to play them. There is a lot of tact and
I mean, the truth is, so that's something that I found kind of nice in these few games of preparation and then playing there on the day. That it was, I mean, again, Jerod had to, I mean, it really was not. It's not autopilot. It really is not, right? Because you need to, again, you have a hand, you have a couple of pushes in your hand, so you need to where to allow myself to sit so that I can take. It's basically a game of bets. I think I can take 1 hit. Maybe I cannot take 2.
Right.
So let me stay back for 2 activations before I come up. it was a lot less. The truth is, it's funny. I picked this warband because I said, "Wow, whatever. I'm just gonna go there and throw dice." And then it turns out that when you're actually playing, it turns out that the truth is like a lot more positioning than dice throwing. In fact, in many of the games.
Yeah, and what I love about your deck specifically is the amount of pushes. We often think, at least here on this show, without distraction, like their pushes aren't as potent as they once were. Now, Jerod does pick a push every time we talk about gambits.
Every time.
But your deck in particular, let me just run through them. You have Predatory Growls, which is a push, Center of Attention, Commanding Stride, Sidestep, Cover of Darkness, right? That's a lot of pushes. And then you threw in Drifting Tides, which is not a push, but it disrupts the state.
It's a disruption, yeah. Actually, it's funny enough, that card, I ended up using, because there was only basically Genie really playing Hold Objectives, at least that I played.
Yes.
I used it actually way more often to drop an extra upgrade on Moloch, but that's also fine. That's exactly what the deck wanted to do also. So in a way, it was surprisingly useful for Moloch, that particular card. And on top of that, it allowed me to score was that card for having one persistent gambit. So that was another. So there was some a little bit of synergy inside, right?
Yeah. Promise of Destruction.
Exactly. So Promise of Destruction. So I had 3 persisting gambits, and this was one of them. And of course, the other one, by the way, was the Hall of Hidden Eyes.
How did that work out for you?
That was nice, very nice. So surprisingly nice, actually, I have to say. I mean, you really want to try to hit with Moloch, right?
Yeah.
And this world full of copper hexes is a world where it's even less accurate than we're used to, just by definition, right? So then, and this card exists to flip this on its head, right? And say, well, actually, we're going to make the world more accurate than it was before, right? And very often people have to come in. I mean, when this card is down, people flip the objectives, right? And that's fine. But that's fine. They've already gone from the double dodge counting to nothing counting. So that's an. But the truth is, people are running. People are trying to score Horrors in the Dark. People are trying to score Fearless Seekers. The people, there's plenty of Gloom tokens that are non-flippable, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So people go there, locate themselves there, and then you get then you get the Halls of Hidden Eyes. And this was, of course, particularly awesome in the games against Shadeborn, of course. But not only on those. I mean, again, Horrors in the Dark. A lot of things actually ask you to be on feature tokens.
Yep. Yeah. I'm super stoked that you ran that card and had success with it. It's one of my favorite cards in this season. So
I mean, the fact that it doesn't go away is also, it was only, whenever you have it, you drop it, and then at some point you're going to need it.
Yep.
And it's going to be there for you, right? That's the nice thing about this card. And again, good to score the what was it? Promise of Destruction. I think the third one was Feign Strength. Actually, that was the third persistent ploy. So, but frankly, Halls of Hidden Eyes, because it persists forever.
Right.
It's just really good if you are trying to score Promise of Destruction. It's just there, just sitting there.
Yeah, just there.
Yeah. So it was, as you know, like half the time, I mean, all these pushes again were actually to move back. So many times I basically charged in and Commanding Strike out of a pickle. Or Cover of Darkness, kind of away, kind of back into my territory. Yeah, I think against Jerod, exactly. That was because again, this guy, we're in a world where not even the troll can afford to take 2 big hits, right? It just,
right.
It's So that was that, and then because our 2-day event got shrank into one.
Well, yeah. What else did you do? So you got a whole day to yourself.
So then I said, well, what the hell am I going to do? I have this one true love called Underworlds, and there's no way I'm going to a con for like 1 day. And then I remember that back when I was young and had a full head of hair, I used to play a lot of this brilliant game called Blood Bowl, which I literally hadn't played since the 90s. And as people will know, they have re-released it, right? Basically in 2016, they literally re-released the exact same game that they released in the 90s. And then in 2020, they did a true second edition that actually has some actual changes. Now there's passing characteristics anyway. And it's just a great game. And I hadn't played in 20 something years, and I went on Saturday to play with the people there. Almost 40 players, by the way. So this was no small thing.
Still healthy.
Extremely good vibes. I think because the game is so much about pushing your luck, I think it attracts a different kind of player.
Yeah.
And everyone was super relaxed. The people I played against were extremely relaxed. I told them I haven't played in a long time, and they were kind of, leading me through moves, like things that I was doing wrong and whatever, being very patient with how long I was taking with my turns. And it was just beautiful. I mean, I have the new miniatures are some of them are really beautiful. I have like a nicely painted set of black orcs that I took with a troll. So I tried to be consistent over the 2 days.
Yeah, there you go.
and it was just beautiful. It was a nice day. Yeah.
So was it refreshing to play a game that you weren't necessarily looking to win, just to have a good time?
Oh, very much. Very much. Of course, I'm already thinking about next time I play this and how I'm going to start.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the truth is, it's such a game of. It really feels like a sports game, by the way, in the sense that one momentary lapse, one die roll that doesn't go your way, and you can completely, it's like, this guy just fumbled, right? So it really is just a very good game. Not to say that it's very random. Like good players win way more often than bad players. So basically, and you could see. But I think I'm going to try to. It seems to me, but in any case, it makes a good combination of games. Like one game that you're like serious, maybe even too serious about it.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
And then a game like this one, they just, okay, let's just go and play, right? And it's like a good pairing of 2 games for a con, right? More than that, probably I would be too tired anyway to play. But 2 games, I think, you go to a 3-day con, like one of these big ones. I think it's nice to have things to do for 3 days, right?
Yeah.
2 to 3 days. Yeah. And
always good to play another game.
I think that's the case. And it's still a small game that, the addition, basically, my Blood Bowl team plus the Moloch and Co. It was still a small little foam.
Yeah.
So
right.
I went around with my little case of minis. I didn't have to go around with the big old, the giant backpack or the giant, bag full of minis. So it's still, very convenient in this way.
Very.
Like I don't have the stamina for big army level games anymore, I don't think.
Yeah.
I completely understand that. But so you mentioned, getting traction back into Underworlds. You have this wonderful platform of a whole 15 listeners. If you could do one thing to Underworlds, how could we spark the larger tournament scene? And I'm talking the con scene, because Adepticon had a good turnout because Davies' crew came down.
Because Davies,
right? But we've seen other cons like Nova do, 10 to 15. What do you think Underworlds could do to really spark the large tournament scene to get, 25 players again?
I mean, what we need is the game to start being played in the friendly local game stores again, right? And, we have all these rumors of tournament kits coming up.
Oh, yeah.
That could, whet people's interest. But more importantly, I think that we need to just go all into these new restricted formats, Rivals Plus or whatever it's going to be called, where people can actually just literally buy a warband, maybe buy an extra pack of cards and just go play.
Yeah.
And don't feel that they are basically playing with 2 hands tied against their back because they don't know all the expansions and therefore they're missing crucial cards, etc. I think if trying to get into championship now from a new player is a very daunting proposition, right? You need to go. Actually, it's so daunting that in fact, in many cases, it's impossible because many things are actually out of print.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's frankly a little bit of an absurd situation, and it can also be overwhelming. Like even if there wasn't this problem of getting stuff, is that you look at what can you choose from, and it's just a giant pile of cards. Right? While the question about putting together a nice fine-tuned Rivals Plus deck is a more well-defined question, right? It's basically, here is the warband I want to play.
Yep.
Let me look at these other decks. Which one do I think fits better, or which one fits my play style, and then just try to. It's within it's just mixing in, I guess, 64 cards into 32, right? So.
Yep.
So would you still travel to Nova for a Rivals Plus event?
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, here actually, frankly, yesterday there was a tournament of Rivals Plus. Anyway, a town down the line. I couldn't go because, as you can imagine, I'm a little bit in the doghouse these days after spending
I'm
last
right
week.
there with you.
But they were 8 people, which is the magic number for a tournament. They had a ton of fun. And you see the combinations. People brought. I think actually Skitter's Claw won the tournament with kind of a stagger build.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I've played some of these tournaments in Rivals Plus. It's a good format. It's actually a good format. It's a little bit less degenerate in terms of efficiency, right? You cannot typically put together, like I did, 4 pushes and whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that also means, by the way, that you see more cards. Funny enough, it's more restricted, and you see more cards because you're forced to pick from a smaller set, and therefore maybe the best push that you have in this set is not the one that you would pick if you could have just simply take sidestep.
Right.
Yep.
Right. But you see weirder cards, and that's also nice. There's all kinds of funny cards there that interact with each other in funny ways. So like good players are able to it's more of like a lemonade game in which you're given some stuff and you try to do the best you can. I like it. I think it's great.
To see a stagger build, like you get stagger in championship, but you're probably not going all in on a stagger build. So that's really cool to see, and it was great to see. Well, at least on the internet, that Max Bernstein is still playing the game.
Oh, that was this is where he went. He was in this tournament yesterday.
He was, yes. But he didn't have an original thought, Max, because you still pick Crushes. And I mean, I know that you just want to be like me, so it's fine that you had to play Crushes. It's fine, Max. Don't worry. I see you.
But it's Crushes on Rivals Plus, though. I have no idea what he mixed it with. But yeah. So there were people playing Scythe. Scythe in Rivals Plus, for example, is these are warbands that in Championship they are basically like third shelf, so you don't even look at them, right? But in the world of Rivals Plus, everything is less efficient. So actually, something like Scythe, you can have a good game. You can have a good day, actually. I mean, that's I think that funny enough, it's a more restricted format that I think will allow for us to see more things, more warbands, more variety, more warbands and cards. So I'm all in on that. But the biggest thing is that it reduces a lot the entry costs.
Yes.
And this is exactly what we need, because the game is great. It's in a great spot. But right now, the entry costs, I think they're steep. And that's why it's hard to get people in. I mean,
it's a great comment. And I too would travel many, many miles for Rivals Plus just because I do think it's a great format. And I don't think I've ever asked you this before, but now that we have something like 42 warbands, what is your favorite warband in the entire game?
Oh my God. That's a long. That my first love was actually also Destruction Greenskins. Like I spent a season and a half playing the original Rooks. What was it, Gurzak?
Yep.
And then so yeah, I don't know what's my favorite. I mean, I think so actually, if I had to go by Scouts and Spirit of the Warband, I really, really like Scythe. Maybe that's why I bring it back. Like the Scouts are amazing.
Yeah.
The inspiration is great, right? Really, it just fits with the spirit of the band, right? Go forward, charge, be dynamic. But the truth is, it's not particularly competitive, so maybe I haven't played them as much as they deserve. As you know, probably actually, but to be honest, I just if you're really forced, back against the wall, say one, I will probably have to go back to Banshees. I mean, they are like the Scouts. The truth is, I had my eye on those Scouts from the second they came out for Age of Sigmar. They're just such beautiful Scouts.
Wow.
And when they actually made the warbands, I was like giggling like a schoolgirl. Yeah, it was. It's plus they happen to have a lot of character, right? They have a lot of like dirty tricks. Like it's I just.
Well, the cards have character. The models kind of like look the same, left, center, right is basically.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's the subtlety. You're missing the subtleties, Jason. It's like one has a jaw, The other one doesn't. Come on. There's one flying upwards, another one is flying downwards. There's a lot of character there, man. It's just very subtle. It's very subtle.
I love Lady Heroes as well. That's who I would have thought you would have picked, but it's good to Wild Hunt, getting in the mix. And I would have never picked that when you started playing that you would have played Iron Skull Boys. Like I just,
that was my first love. Yeah.
Really, I just don't. Yeah, that's cool.
Iron Skull Boys, and then a little bit of and then when Magor came up, then of course they were, you could still do okay, but they were kind of severely outclassed.
Yeah.
Right. So then I had a nicely painted set of the naked dwarfs that they could really give Magor a run for their money. And then of course, then Nightball comes in, whatever, played all kinds of things. And I guess in Nightball, I mostly played Thandrix. I think a lot of us just played and Godsworn. Sorry, Godsworn first.
Yes,
and
you went to the Grand Clash
exactly
in the UK with that.
So. And then Thandrix, yeah. And then that summer is when the Banshees came out. Yeah. The summer after that. So and after that, everything feels like a haze because it was COVID time. We were all basically playing on the computer.
Right.
Sadly, I have to confess, half of my warbands, they never left the box.
Oh wow.
They are still in the sprues. I mean, because, you weren't going to shop, we weren't doing much. I mean, it's just a sad state of affairs. I have a nicely painted Sky set though, but that's kind of pre-COVID when you think about this, like this, Yeah. But a lot of the, especially the second half of Beastgrave and the first half of Dire Chasm, some of the warbands I don't even have, but they are not even put together. That's my shame. That's my shame. Although I have a nicely painted set of Dread Pagan. Oh, that's another warband that I love actually. Dread Pagan. The sculpts are beautiful. The cards are extremely tricksy. That's another nice. Actually, I was surprised we didn't see that. I mean, if I had known that, Dread Pagan is just it will always have something going for it, right? It's just a tricksy warband.
Yeah, they've got some really good in-faction cards that I think keep them relevant regardless of the season. So
exactly, and if they're relevant, as long as there's some decent hold objective cards out there, they're gonna be okay. I think. Yeah. And then the Lizards, another fantastic warband actually. I mean, the truth is the last two seasons have been filled up with
Fanboy and him is coming out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there are things I like, things I don't like, but it turns out that in this game I like quite a lot of it.
No. Well, again, congratulations on your win, your dominating win. You really demolished the opposition. You rolled all the crits. And, great outing. It was great to see you in person. It was
great to hang out, guys. Yeah,
it was great to hang out. I got to witness you take one shot for I saw it.
That was one shot too many, probably. As you know, I was outperformed in that dimension by several people, some of which probably shouldn't have outperformed me by that much. But that's a story that will live for another day.
No, it was a great time. I can't wait to do it again. It was far too long, but again, congratulations on your excellent play. I one day aspire to be as great as you. So.
Oh my God!
All right.
Take care, guys. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you. With that, we'll be right back in a couple minutes.
And we're back, and that wraps up the 42nd episode of the Battle Mallet podcast. We appreciate you taking the time to listen, and as always, we appreciate any feedback that you would like to give. We want to continue to produce content that is helpful and useful, that helps drive engagement with the game. There will be a blog version of this episode available on our blog.battle-mallet.com. And you can find us on Facebook at the Battle Mallet Podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Battle Mallet 1. You can find us on Instagram, Battle Mallet PCast. And we accept feedback from any of those platforms. We also have a Discord server. The link to that is in the show notes. So you can find us there and leave us feedback there as well. We're regularly in that Discord hanging out, just chatting or doing hobby or whatever. It's been a little quiet lately. I think we're all still tired from Nova. Speaking of which, there will be an episode in the near future recapping all of our Nova experiences. That'll be more of a grab bag than our Hexed episodes have been. But I think that's it. We do want to thank Gerard again for being on the episode and sharing his Nova experience with us and with everyone via our podcast. So it's always good to catch up with him. Just an excellent times being able to spend time with people that we know virtually or that we met at Nova 3 years ago and be able to see them, spend time with them, hang out with them again.
Yeah, and I want to give a thank you too. So, we're kind of a small little group here playing Underworlds. Gerard being part of that, Jimmy also being part of that. So going to Nova with only 11 people registered to attend, I really want to give a shout out to Zach Newcomb, who was the best sparring partner for the entire group. I'm pretty sure everybody played against him. And Zach kept everyone's warband under wraps through the event, and more importantly, provided some really, really great feedback, especially in my experiences on how to get the deck more tweaked and better. And then just being supportive of the selections, right? I think everyone knows that I struggled to pick a warband leading up to Nova, and Zach supported all of my different flavors of the week. So Zach, thank you. Hopefully next year you can attend Nova because you are close to us.
It's true.
Because I'd love to play in person. But thank you very much, sir. Thanks for all that you do for the Underworlds community.
Nice. So, yeah, I guess that rounds us out for the episode. I'm trying to decide how I want to close the show, and it's just not coming to me. So, for the Battle Mallet podcast, we are two dads feeling the call of the dark.
Sure.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine.
More like two dads that are lucky to record this week, given how much marriage equity we have spent over the last week and a half. So.
Yeah. I think that sums it up quite nicely. So this is Jerod signing out.
And I'm Jason Table Newmurray. Get the hell out of here. Go
Peace. Well, I interrupted your Go Bills. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
The Battle Mallet podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats.
And now we're going to talk about Zerski. Never mind.